Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called My Angelic Husband is Actually a Devil in Disguise. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! Satia Poine has just graduated from the academy and is about to take the exam to become a government official. For all she's concerned, she is ready to take on the world. But the world is hardly fair, for despite all her years in pursuing education, all her family wants her to do is to marry into a harem. And guess what? It is supposed to be her payment to her parents for raising her. Her family has served as a knight to the House of Halogen, but their title is not hereditary. To maintain their status, her father grovels to gain favor from the nobles they serve. In doing so, he accumulates more and more debts by spending money they didn't have. Since her father is against her becoming a knight, Satia paves her own way. She wins a scholarship and works part-time jobs, all so she can graduate. After all this effort, she is not about to let her family sell her off to pay their debts. That is how she finds herself at the employment agency. She is more than willing to pay back her parent for raising her, but she has no idea where she'll even get the money. Unexpectedly, salvation comes in the form of a badly dressed man who suddenly enters the establishment. Shortly after the man has arrived, Satia is informed that there is a job available for her. The mysterious man is willing to hire her. When she comes face to face with the guy, though, she realizes that she knows him. It's Miere Lunaria. He was a year ahead of her in the academy and is famous for being at the bottom of his class, scoring 0 in all his exams. Not to mention that he also has some questionable fashion sense. And now, he is supposed to be her new boss. The two of them begin their formal discussion, and Lumiere goes through her credentials. He then tells her that he has too much money on his hands, and he also adds that he is a count. With that in mind, he points out that he needs someone competent like her by his side since he's not very clever. When Satia asks what exactly the job is, he answers that he wants her to manage his family assets. At first, she thinks that he needs a personal assistant, but this is not the case because he continues that he needs her to be his wife. I can totally understand why Satia took some time to process that. After all, it's not every day that you go apply for a job and get a marriage proposal instead. If only life were that easy. Satia can't believe what she heard. After all, even though he is a count, Miere Lunaria is considered to be terrible husband material. The prospect of being a countess is better than being sold into a harem, but she hates dummies. Oh, that's harsh. I mean, I'm sure he has some good qualities. Just look at him. He's adorable. Her train of thought is interrupted when he explains that it will only be a contractual marriage. Satia is relieved, but she is still curious about why he would even want a fake marriage when he can just have a real one, especially if he wants to have children. Somewhat shyly, he replies that he doesn't want to have children for personal reasons and has decided to pass on his title to the child of the first prince, who is his cousin. Satia figures that this makes sense. And so, what he really needs is a business partner, and he intends the contract to last for 4 years. Of course, he will allow her to think about it for some time. He informs her of the beautiful roses at the Lunaria estate and how he wants to enjoy them with her. But before he can leave, Satia makes it known that she wants to watch the roses bloom with him as well. Now that they are in agreement, the two of them sit down to discuss the terms. They discuss the monthly wages of 10 million lin, as well as the severance package of 500 million. If ever there is a breach of contract, there would be a payment of thrice the agreed amount. Wow, this dude is loaded! When asked if he wants to add something, he answers that it should be written that the two of them should do their marriage duties. Naturally, Satia panics because what else could that possibly mean? But then he continues by saying that he wants them to look like a real couple, so they must eat meals together, and there should be no paramour on the side. He is also particularly happy to hear that she doesn't have a lover yet. I wonder why. He also wants to include the part about them watching the roses bloom in the contract, much to Satia's bewilderment. He is so random and cheerful. Ugh, it's too early for me to want to hug him. After all that, he tells her that she can now plan her dream wedding. But ever the practical person, she wants to skip the ceremony to save money. Satia then tells him that if anyone asks why they skipped it, he should reason that it's because she had cut ties with her family. He retorts that they can just say that it's because he has no one to invite. He then turns to leave with the excuse of tending to his garden, leaving a rather amused Satia. She can't believe that he is childishly competing with her to see who has the less people to invite. But then she hears his voice again, and she is startled to see him peeking behind the door. He then tells her that since they have skipped formalities, this is supposed to be their wedding night. Later on, they are preparing for bed, and Mier gallantly offers that he'll take the sofa. Unfortunately for him, Satia is rather distracted by his loose-fitting sleepwear because, my god, she can see his glorious chest. When she finally gets her senses back, she argues that he is too tall for the sofa, so she ends up suggesting that they share the bed and use a curtain to split the bed down the middle starting tomorrow. The adorable Count enthusiastically compliments her cleverness, and she is quite flustered that she is being praised so easily. When they are lying side by side, Satia thinks about how he did not take advantage of her situation at all, and even tells him that he is not required to be so kind to her since he is her boss. When she is asleep, Mier stares at her for a while with an endearing smile. Later on, Karen, his assistant, informs him of the amount of debt Satia's family is in. We finally see the Count's true color. Upon hearing how she is treated by her own family, the Count's entire demeanor becomes menacing, signaled by the tapping of his fingers. Karen is pretty much aware that he was plotting something sinister. Nonetheless, the Count withholds himself, remembering that they are still Satia's family. Suddenly, Satia comes knocking in the office, and Mier instantly changes character, becoming docile and dim-witted once again. He greets Satia happily and even pretends to stagger for the show. When Karen helps him up, he menacingly whispers to his assistant to get lost. Also, his wife will fuss over him. Ugh, this shift in personality is so eerie. They were enjoying their meal when suddenly Mier leans towards her. Satia is naturally startled, but he is just wiping the crumbs off her face. However, she is surprised when he playfully licks his fingers. OMG. She realizes that he may be more of a rake than he lets on. Eventually, Satia gets to sort through the documents of the Lunaria fiefdom, and man is it a mess. She notes that he needs more lessons in mathematics and grammar, but this is nothing to her because all this work means that she is finally free from the clutches of her family. After a while, the gleeful voice of her husband interrupts her. He has come to introduce her to her personal maid, Rainey Sonar. The maid gives her the most enthusiastic greetings, but Satia can't help but notice that she looks young. The Count then offers that they go to the greenhouse since she looks so stressed poring over the books for the last few days. After a brief cutesy pleading from Mier, Satia agrees, thinking that the contract does require them to look like a loved-up couple. The Count even gestures that they hold hands. He is honestly adorable. I mean, they weren't kidding. He really is so angelic. In the garden, she notices beautiful yellow wildflowers, so she asks him about it. He explains that he keeps them in the garden because he finds them pretty, a rather unusual behavior for a noble since others do not tolerate wildflowers. The two of them take a closer look, and Mier tells her that the flower is called the sunset flower. Later on, the two of them continue their tour of the garden. He even drags her along to see the vegetables, adorably chattering all the way. Later on, the two of them settle for some tea. He tells her that he will be going to the royal palace the following day to see the crown prince, so he asks her to take care of the estate while he is gone. She agrees and wishes him safe travels. Then, out of nowhere, he thanks her for agreeing to be his wife, causing her to blush like a ripe tomato. When she goes back to work after the quick break, she glances at the potted sunset flowers that the Count gave her, and she can't help but smile fondly. I think this little contract marriage is getting a tad bit serious, don't you think, guys? Night comes, and we see Mier getting out of bed while Satia is still asleep. He stands to look at her for a while before turning to leave, vowing that this will not be their final goodbye. Satia is sending the Count off, and as usual, he is being dramatic, saying that this is the first time they'll be apart since their marriage. But then, to her surprise, the Count kisses her on the cheek, and when he leans back, Satia's entire face is colored red, especially when Mier tells her that he'll miss her even though he'll only be gone for a day. Before he enters the carriage, he tells her that he'll be back soon, and she smiles at him while telling him to be safe. As she watches his carriage drift away, she tries to control her emotions and remind herself that it is only part of their marital duties. She busies herself the entire day with the affairs of the estate, but when night comes, she begins to worry. The Count has yet to arrive because he usually tends to his garden around this time. She wonders if something has happened. Suddenly, there is a series of knocks on her door, along with a frantic call for her attention. It is Rainey, and she has brought some awful news. Her eyes widen upon hearing it, and she instantly feels faint. Her husband, Count Mier, has been found dead, attacked by bandits, they said. OMG, how could this happen? I did not see this coming at all. 3 years have passed since the sudden death of Mier. The roses start to flourish in May and go into full bloom in June, just like her husband has said. For a long time, she has gotten used to watching the roses alone, but it will soon come to an end because in 8 months, the contract will expire. One of her duties as Countess is to deal with trade. She goes to the kingdom of Chae across the ocean, for instance. In one of her visits there, a delegation from Aliere has come to see her. She's been informed that the next emperor awaits her return. Apparently, there's been a coup d'etat. Whoa! This story really is going all out. There is so much chaos. Anyway, the crown prince and the third prince have apparently rebelled against the crown, and the emperor passed away amidst the chaos. The first prince is able to defeat them and execute those who participated in the coup. The whole thing makes Setia uneasy, but she still instantly orders Rainey to pack their things for their departure. They arrive back at the capital to see the coronation of the new emperor. The emperor addresses his people and shares how his life has been in danger even before the rebellion. Not just his, but his mother's as well, Miere Lunaria and her only family, the Count of Lunaria. He revealed that the Count and Countess of Lunaria have been murdered by the ex-empress, which means that the life of Count Mier has been in danger as well. Right then, a figure in white walks towards the crowd as the emperor explains that the death of Count Mier is just a trick to avoid assassination attempts and to help him ascend to the throne. He pronounces that the king is now the new Duke of Aliere. Amidst the chaos, Setia cannot believe her eyes. All this time, her husband is alive. The crowd is astonished as well. They are having a hard time believing that the supposedly dead count is not standing before them, alive and well. Imagine what Setia is actually feeling at the moment. She is so shocked that she can't seem to move, believing this is all a dream, especially since she has held a funeral. Could it be that God is consoling her for her loss by making her hallucinate? Meanwhile, Mier finally locks eyes with his wife, and the first thing he notices is that a man beside her is constantly smiling at him from before. His gaze becomes icy, not appreciating the man's presence, but he has to go before the emperor first. While the crowd is distracted, the man calls out to Setia, looking conflicted. This man is Royus, and she has met him in the Chae kingdom. He was one who helped her when some pickpocket had stolen her belongings at the port. One look from her is all it takes for him to be besotted by her. Well, not all of us can be as gorgeous as you, Setia. Look at her, enchanting handsome men wherever she goes. It turns out that he was also the head of the merchant group that she wanted to do business with, by selling the rose candy made from the famous roses at the Lunaria estate. He even toured her around the kingdom, and they soon became fast friends. During one of their walks, he witnessed how her health was deteriorating out of exhaustion. He worried that she was overstretching herself since she personally went to wipe out the bandits that killed her husband. She assured him that she was fine, but he reminded her that being healthy was part of her job too. He expressed that he wants her to be happy. Back in the present, the same man now looks desperate as he tries to get Setia's attention, reminding her that they were supposed to have tea. However, when Setia does not respond, he tells her that she spent a mere month with her husband, whilst he has been with her for 2 years. He then begs her to choose him. OMG, this is getting intense! For Setia, it was not only a mere month. The little time she had spent with Mier gave her the motivation to live her life to the fullest. Right as she is recalling all the wonderful times she had with Mier, a voice calls out to her. Lumiere is finally standing before her, and he shows his signature cutesy smile. Setia then tells Royus that they will have tea some other time. Ouch. I don't know about you guys, but that certainly looks like she already has a choice. Royus is taken aback, but agrees with her graciously. He leaves, but not before sharing a glare with Mier. The couple is now left alone, and there is an awkward silence between them, which is understandable because how else would you react when your supposed dead husband is now standing next to you? When she finally speaks to tell him that they should speak at home, he jolts out of fright, but agrees nonetheless. However, in the carriage, the silence still continues as both of them are at a loss for words. With much hesitation, Setia finally asks him what really happened. She reminds him that he promised to treat her with respect as if she were his real wife, and yet he still did not tell her that he was alive. Setia knows that he doesn't know how devastated she was about his death. Noticing his silence, Setia's sadness turns to anger, so she punches him in the chest for not looking at her or saying anything. When he continues to turn his melancholic eyes downwards, she yells that he is a bad person and terribly irresponsible. She blames him for leaving her to fend for herself. Mier continues to be silent, thinking about how he couldn't tell her that he was alive even if he wanted to. He wanted to have both his revenge and Setia, and so he did what he did. During the time they were together, he made sure to leave an impact on her. In case he truly did perish, he wanted her to remember him. When he was away, he learned about how much she had suffered. He was caught off guard that she was devastated by his death. He breaks his silence, offering her his most sincere apology for making her suffer. He explains that he did it to avenge his family, and he didn't want her to be in danger. Satia is struggling to hold her resolve, but in the end, she sighs, admitting that she was just emotionally drained. However, to her surprise, he kneels before her, apologizing profusely. He even begs her not to leave him. Aw, he looks like a puppy begging for forgiveness. I don't know about you, Satia, but I could never stay mad at that face. Satia looks down at him for a while and sighs. She points out that the former count, now the Duke, is not very clever. She explains that she can't actually leave because she's still bound by the contract. Realizing that that part of the contract becomes his saving grace, Mier grins in relief, much to the annoyance of the still pissed-off Satia. She makes him swear to always tell her where he is going in advance and tell her if he feels like he's in danger. She emphasizes that even if she's just his contractual wife, she still has the right to know his whereabouts. The angel, Mier, agrees with her without hesitation. After a while, she asks him to go back to his seat, for he can't kneel forever. But he admits that he'll do it if it means that she'll feel better. Oh, MG. Not only does he look adorable, but he also has a way with words. I am melting. Suddenly, the carriage rattles because of a bump on the road, and he gets shoved towards her. Annoyed, Satia asks him to take a seat for the sake of the servants who might see their Duke in such a state. They now sit side by side, and the awkwardness has returned. Slowly, he reaches for her hand, but then she suddenly blurts out that she misspoke when she said that he wasn't clever. He brushes this off, saying that he'd rather that she be honest with him. After all, she did agree to marry him because she knows he is lacking. He declares how glad he is for it. She studies his pleasant smile for a while and blurts out laughing. The Duke is overjoyed to see her smiling again, confessing that her smiles make him happy. When he begins telling her how wonderful her smile is, she makes him stop out of embarrassment. Aww, they're such a cute couple. Later on, Mier asks about the man she was with earlier and why they are calling each other so familiarly. Someone is jealous, I can tell. She explains Royus' identity as well as his role in their trade and clarifies that they address each other formally because they are the same age. When they arrive at their home in the capital, Mier remarks about the flourishing rose garden. Satia happily tells him that it is the same at their estate. However, she notices him staring at her. When she asks what's the matter, he suddenly embraces her. He tells her how he missed her and squeezes his wife so tightly. He must really miss Satia for him to act like this. Oh, to be in the arms of someone like Mier. He only lets go when she complains that she can no longer breathe. He apologizes afterwards, stating that he was just carried away. Unfortunately for Satia, her being flustered does not end here, especially when he takes some of her hair and kisses them. He even tells her that he can perform his knightly duties now. With an air of confidence that seems to be borderline crossing into arrogance, the old Count-turned-Duke Mier pledges that he can perform his supposed knightly duties now. Naturally, this leaves Satia a little bit frozen in place because of how brazenly he said those words with a straight face. Anyhow, she starts going on about how she missed him when he disappeared without a trace. Before Satia could finish, however, Mier pulls her in for a tight hug, apparently happy at the thought that she did long for him in his absence. Although when he asked to what extent did she miss him, she started playing coy at first, even though her initial answer in her thoughts was that she did miss him so very much. With a little bit of prying, though, Mier manages to finally get his wife to admit it, grinning and blushing as she did so. But rather than be part of the mood, Satia gets an annoyed look on her face, expressing how upset she is when her supposed dead husband appeared out of nowhere, despite the fact that she really did long for him all this time. With a heavy yet guilty slump, Mier could only apologize. Word of his return has started spreading towards his estate, brought upon by his workers and employees who are able to see him return with their lady Satia. Of course, not a lot of people believe their colleagues initially, and even poor Rainey gets told that she may have mixed the lines between dreams and reality when she told her fellow workers of their lord's return. She urges them to see for themselves, which they gladly did, even betting on whether or not the current news is from Rainey's delusion. Complete shock and bewilderment hits their faces as they see that she was, in fact, telling the truth. The lord they've entered servitude into is standing right there in the garden that he loves with his wife. They all understandably express their emotions rather loudly, much to Mier's annoyance. And when she sees her husband apparently getting a headache, she calmly orders their servants to allow their master a bit of rest first, in spite of their excitement to see him again. Her wise, stern, yet gentle attitude makes Mier smile, though he himself gets sent to their bedroom chambers for his rest as well. There, when Satia tries to excuse herself in order to go attend some matters after Mier has been tucked in bed, the latter decides to plead with her to stay in their room, if she can do her work here. The childlike manner that he takes when talking to her strikes Satia the same way as a puppy with large, cute, puffy eyes, which is why she can't refuse. She starts to work at a table next to their bed, but after the urging of her husband, she sets it down and goes into bed with him. There, they talk about catching up with one another, and Mier asks her about war against the bandits and him saying sorry for what he did. Eventually, though, he gets something stuck in his eye, and Satia, out of curiosity, asks him why he wears his bangs so low. In his childish nature, Mier's answer as to why he wears his hair down to the point of covering his eyes is because it is his style. His style doesn't go too far with Satia based on her reaction, though, because she can't believe that his unkempt appearance actually counts as stylish to him. Mier seems to pick up on her distaste for his hair, which makes him slump out of the blue. But Satia is quick to say how she respects whatever preferences her husband may have. And speaking of preferences, he asks what is hers when it comes to men's hair. Perhaps hinting at the tiniest amount of jealousy, he asks whether the lady prefers long hair on men, just like her merchant friend. It's cute how the glimpse of jealousy and his childish attitude manages to come out in situations one least expects. Thankfully, Satia doesn't manage to pick up on this and merely says she doesn't think about it that much. But what she does know is what she doesn't like, which is Mier's shabby appearance. Of course, Satia doesn't say this out loud, instead choosing to say that it's the fit on the person that counts. And so the topic of conversation eventually leads to catching the former count up to current speed about the affairs of his estate in his absence. Afterwards, though, the couple decide to take a bath before turning in for the night. Separately, of course, as evident with Mier in the bath by himself. Despite his demeanor with Satia and his passive attitude most of the time, his eyes remain as sharp as ever, and a hint of a more confident personality seeps through as he forms a tiny smirk while leaving the bathroom. None of this is present, however, when he tries to go to sleep after being fully dressed. With his hair still wet, his wife naturally forbids him from climbing onto the bed, but she instead offers to dry his hair for him. In doing so, Satia manages to catch a glimpse of Mier's true features, as after his hair has been properly taken care of and brushed, it reveals a handsome face underneath. This makes Satia wonder how he can possibly cover up such heavenly features. Anyway, with him done, Mier suggests that they do it the other way around. However, in a rather peculiar moment, his hands manage to find Satia's. But in a split second, she slaps it away, perhaps based solely on instinct. Trying to clear the air, she again reiterates how His Grace, Mier's new title as Duke brings a new set of formalities, cannot manage to dry a woman's hair. But he keeps on insisting, and so she relents, and he actually does a good job of it, though. He gets a little sidetracked, however, when he sniffs in the scents of his wife's hair. Knowing it to be the scent of roses, Mier mentions how he truly goes crazy for such a fragrance, much to Satia's shyness, and she blushes. That seems to end the night on a good note, and so the two exchange pleasantries before turning in for the night. Unfortunately, as Satia pulls back the curtain, what he sees after makes Mier form an annoyed and rather confused expression on his face. It turns out the thing that got the wrong kind of attention for the new Duke is none other than the very curtain that they used to separate their own giant bed into each of their own sides. Now that they aren't in their estate, Mier hopes it would be a problem for him, but alas, here it is again. Satia tries to feign ignorance, but she's actually the one who brought it because of her liking to curtains in general. Knowing he cannot do anything about it, he has no choice but to again greet his wife goodnight. However, even after doing so, he remains standing in front of the bed, apparently gathering strength to speak his mind. When Satia asks him what's wrong, though, after a moment he changes his mind, says it's nothing, and climbs into the bed while facing the other way from her. It seems he wants to sleep with her without any curtains in the way. Anyway, just a few moments later, Mier twists and turns himself away from the bed, only to stand and observe his wife sleeping from her side. To his relief, she still falls asleep the moment her head touches her pillow, a fact that makes him smile. Remembering their conversation in the carriage on the way to their mansion, he thinks about what Satia had said about him, and this time, he vows never to leave her side again. But it seems he's far from sleepy, and his focus is somewhere else. Mier walks out of their room and asks Rainey to come with him, as the maid is stationed waiting right outside their door. Immediately upon sitting down, the first thing that comes out of his mouth is asking the maid how come she has failed her job. It turns out, he has bid her to take note of everything that happens with Lady Satia, so he asks how she manages to miss the foreigner who's supposedly friends with his wife in Rainey's monthly reports. Even though Rainey puts it as just a lady having a new friend, Mier knows better, as he had seen him put his hands on his wife, a married woman, and had asked her to choose him instead of her husband. But just like how childish Mier gets, Rainey's reason for this supposed betrayal is the fact that Royus brought her some spicy rice cakes. After getting over how perplexed he is with her answer, he finally asks about the details of this man. Rainey straightens and proceeds to essentially praise Royus, not because of popularity or choice, but because that is exactly his personality. He's a good person to boot. His real name is Xiao Chongyun, but he goes formally by Royus, and he is the leader of the Moon Merchant Group. He's long been considered the prize bachelor of Chae, which is the exact opposite of the image that Mier portrays, that of terrible husband material. Why does he pretend anyway? Nonetheless, out of all the things Rainey says, what sticks with him the most is the fact that Royus tried to confess his feelings by kissing Satia on the cheeks, though thankfully his wife clearly recognizes him only as a friend. Mier lingers in the room after he dismisses Rainey, tapping the chair he sits on as he thinks about how he's not going to live a mundane life with a rival trying to get Satia. The bright early morning sun fills the bedroom with light as the alarm clock rings through, signaling the inhabitants to rise awake. Satia is first to come back from sleep, shutting off the alarm as she does so. But to her surprise, once she manages to get her bearings, she finds it a little surprising that Mier has slept through right into her side of the bed. She finds this peculiar because he's never done so before, and is usually not that of a heavy sleeper type. But soon enough, all those thoughts disappear from her mind as her eyes give upon her husband's face, being reminded of how angelic his features are. Still, she shakes her head to snap out of it, thinking about the matters needing her attention. First of which is her training. Now clad in a comfortable sword-fighting attire, Satia clutches her sword with confidence and ease, suggesting a long history of handling such a weapon. She practices thrusts, slashes, and any other sort of swordsmanship in their training room, with each stroke of attack just as good as any. Her concentration and her solitude is broken, though, when Mier comes to see her train. She actually doesn't mind him doing so and proceeds to go about her business. Unfortunately, she doesn't get to show him that much of her skills, as she immediately feels unwell, something that she lets her husband know when he gets close to her. The truth is, she doesn't even have enough strength left to properly stand, having to lean on Mier's chest in order to do so. Naturally, Mier calls doctors to examine his wife and finds that she has caught a cold and a very high fever from overworking. He asks her to stay bedridden and to get her rest, to which Satia reluctantly agrees. However, it's in this moment when Satia wakes up from her sleep and sees the Duke with papers in his hands that she gets to admit to herself her fears. It turns out she values her relationship with Mier because she has never felt safe with anything or anyone except him. She doesn't want him to get good at handling his estate, simply because it's what he hired her for, and she's afraid it's the only reason she's there in the first place. Satia drifts in and out of sleep, so much so that she forgets the time. Mier, being the attentive husband that he is when it comes to her, finds himself right by her bedside. He asks her whether or not she had been dreaming, because apparently she had talked in her sleep, calling him a fool. Satia is quick to dismiss it though, owing it to the fact that her body's been sleeping and waking up a lot, hence why it doesn't function properly. Nonetheless, she asks the Duke what he was doing sitting and going through papers, to which his answer is that since he's been away a long time, it's only right that he catches himself up on the current handlings and situation of his estate. In turn, his wife bids him to rest when it gets dark, but internally, Satia is thinking that it's her job he's doing, again referring to her fear. But actually, Mier only bids her to take care of her body more often since it's been screaming for rest unknowingly. He also argues that it's also part of her job. A sense of relief washes over her as Satia confirms that she will do what her husband had said. Unfortunately, it would seem that she finds it hard to follow her husband's request a little bit more than she actually says. This is evident by the fact that after waking up first again, Satia gets up to check her temperature. The good news is, her fever went down a little bit. To her surprise, immediately after using a thermometer, she finds Mier awake as well, with his eyes gazing at her much like a wolf on his target. But his gaze turns soft anyway as he asks for the results of the thermometer. She says her temperature has gone down a little bit, and so she's ready for work. Her only valid excuse is because her body has told her so. And so Mier, who is still worrying about his wife, has no choice but to carry his wife back to their bedroom, where he sets her down in the bed. The following morning, thankfully, saw further improvement in Satia's condition, so much so that she asks for a trip to the garden, and naturally, Mier happily accepts. In front of the almost blooming roses and the fresh air, the couple experiences a multitude of emotions. Of course, started upon by Mier himself. He bids their maids-in-waiting to give them a little bit of distance so they could have a little privacy as husband and wife. For Satia, though, her mind wanders into the fact that Miere's body is well built for a guy that doesn't train. That is, until out of nowhere, he professes that he'd like to kiss her. Thoughts swirl inside her head, as indeed, it is the most romantic time for them to do so, after finally being together after 3 years. Mier says he'd like to kiss her on her lips, but settles for her cheeks instead in case she isn't comfortable. He leans in, brushes her hair as he does so, and kisses her gently. Unfortunately, he gets a sense a moment later that he has placed his wife in an awkward situation. Satia is left wondering as to what Mier might have meant about the whole "must have felt awkward" comment, but he only attributes it to self-talking, and mainly because he thinks she felt awkward when he leaned in for a kiss. Of course, Satia admits that she didn't feel any sort of negative feeling from the kiss, but what she didn't say is that her heart had started racing for the moment she thought Mier was going to kiss her on the lips. What a missed opportunity there, Mier! Anyway, as they hold hands and walk through the paths lined with beautiful roses growing in tall bushes, Satia can't help but think how she seems to be dating someone very innocent. However, with that wonderful, sweet feeling also comes dread and despair. Negative emotions that are brought upon the realization that all of this is going to come to an end with their contract nearing its expiration. They wouldn't get to see the roses bloom again next year, and she's also pretty sure that based on his declarations and mannerisms, Mier is finally ready to have children and subsequently take on a real wife. What she doesn't understand, though, is why she feels restless inside as the time draws near. Meanwhile, not realizing the deep thoughts that run through her mind, Mier asks Satia for the afternoon tea they've promised each other right there in the garden full of rose blooms. Satia, thinking how they might not have enough time for such a leisure, initially shows doubt at accepting. But seeing her husband slump again from hoping to have this time with her, she eventually accepts, and willingly at that. After their tea and after Satia has been guided back to their bedroom quarters to continue her rest, Mier finds himself doing one of his most sought-after hobbies, gardening. Actually, he spends most of his time caring for and attending to his crops. And even one of his servants actually wishes for him to have been born as a farmer instead of a noble. He's only busy with them as of now because he's gathering fruit to hand-feed Satia himself, after a little bit of sweet convincing from him, of course. Finally, Satia recovers well enough to work, and so Mier decides to tell her about the recent developments of him being appointed as a duke. He relays that he has removed the ceremony for his appointment, something Satia approves of, and he has also denied the reward of land from the newly crowned emperor, a decision she doesn't like. His only reason for refusing it is actually because she's been far too busy as it is. But still, from a business standpoint, she urges him to go back and accept the lands. The richer the soil, the better. And so, happily listening to his wife, he goes to request an audience with the emperor, in which he asks exactly what Satia had told him. Choosing to drop formalities, both the emperor and Mier talk as casually as colleagues, up to the point that the latter seems to be demanding the former's old offer back. The emperor merely laughs it off, but asks why he's asking for it now, when he was so adamant that he wouldn't accept it when it was first offered to him. Based on their previous conversation, he had planned to give him the former fiefdom of the empress's family, the Marquise of Ulaid, but Mier had refused. It comes as a little bit of a shock for the emperor for him to deny his rewards, saying that it should be a proper enough time for him to drop his dim-wit facade. Mier only cited that as of now, he hardly has any time with his wife, and adding more land creates more work for her to be busy. Besides, his reward is that he got his revenge against those who murdered his parents. That line alone makes his absence for 3 years a whole lot more mysterious and interesting. Anyway, Mier's answer as to why he suddenly wants it back is both plainly simple and romantic. It's because of his wife. Again, the emperor seems amused by this and says that he'll give the duke whatever he wants, even the rich farmlands in the south. With their business done, the two start their farewells, with the emperor declaring to his friend that he's happy seeing him in good hands. Meanwhile, Mier says to the emperor to let him know when his services will be needed, casually revealing that all along, Mier is actually an assassin. A big reveal that finally explains his apparent well-trained body. Before he leaves, though, the emperor asks if he's going to visit a certain woman held captive as their prisoner, but the rage from Mier's face says otherwise. With the lands now granted to them, Mier asks what his wife plans to do, to which Satia happily says that she plans to grow crops from Chae in order to make dishes from that region as a way of promoting tourism in their fiefdom. Nonetheless, she says she has to meet with Royus because of their promise to sit down for tea. But Mier says that it will be weird if people will see her, a married woman, going out with someone else in a public place. In fact, she only plans to sit him down so she could reject his feelings as gently as possible. And so, either with jealousy or not, Mier suggests they instead invite Royus for tea in their estate. Looking at Mier with such gleaming eyes, Satia now thinks that he is such a kind-hearted person. Who's gonna tell her? She continues to scribble on a paper, but suddenly flinches as Mier points out the usual flower pot on her desk, the one he gave to her before he disappeared. Satia argues that she just likes flowers and that there's no other meaning to it. Mier isn't delving into further details because she won't give an answer anyways. So he strides off to the sofa and hums happily. When asked why he's in a good mood, he tells her that he's just excited to host her friend in their estate. I doubt that. I'm having trust issues with this man. The next morning, Satia wakes up with the sight of her husband who rolls out to her side of the bed again. Shortly after Satia is done with her training, she returns to the office and asks if Mier slept well last night. Of course he did. He managed to roll over her side of the bed. Thinking that he's doing it unconsciously, Satia decides to create a barrier with pillows under the curtains. Mier isn't rebelling about it for now. Satia notices that he's holding a newspaper, reading the current news about a marquise and 2 counts who were attacked last night by an unknown assailant. The attacker left no trace, and the attack was so sudden and violent with no witnesses nearby. The police believe that it was a calculated attack, and because of that, many nobles are shaking in fear that they might be the next target. Mier is shaking while reading the news, but at the back of his head, he actually was responsible for it. Hours have passed, and Royus finally arrives in the estate. The couple greets him as Royus presents a white porcelain jar from Chae as a gift to the lovely couple. Mier expresses his gratitude, but at the same time, he wanted to throw it out of his sight. As they settle down to talk about things, Mier asks him how they got acquainted. Satia answers this question first, saying it's all about business-to-business things, also referring to Royus by his name. Royus, on the other hand, didn't miss to make it all flowery and confusing, to which Satia always clarifies. Just then, Mier understands what Royus is trying to say, expressing that they are soulmates and that her heart sings when he's with her. Satia agrees with his remarks, reminiscing how he compliments her on everything she does. And well, she lives for compliments, and he needs her more than anything in this world. In fact, he's given her everything she ever needed. Feeling satisfied, Mier gets up and excuses himself, leaving both Royus and Satia. Before leaving, Mier kisses her cheek, which makes Royus dejected. Boy, by now you should know your place. We can't afford more news of an unknown assailant. As soon as Mier closes the door, Royus then gets serious about how he meant every word he said to her back then, further emphasizing how human emotions can't be suppressed in an instant. Mier is just behind the door listening to their conversation. He gets agitated about the fact that he boldly says things to a married woman. Although Satia agrees that they can stay friends, Royus still manages to talk about how Mier's only good at farming, and that he has a few loose screws. Satia isn't very tolerant when someone talks about her husband that way. And so she starts defending him, saying that she likes Mier's purity and innocence. She's the type to calculate everything, even her emotions, and that's exactly why she respects her husband. Royus insists that she has a lot on her plate already, but Satia doesn't feel burdened at all. In fact, it's the reason why she's living a good life far away from her parents' abuse. She didn't stop there. She further exclaims with a beaming smile how Mier is also good in bed. She even claims that she struggles to keep up with his stamina. Mier, who is still eavesdropping on their conversation, feels proud of his wife. She really puts him in his place. Just when Royus is about to come out of the room, Mier dashes out to the office, reaching for a pen as he slams it on the document. He did a thorough investigation about Royus, but he is so clean that it makes him sick. But for sure, he's bound to have a few skeletons in his closet. Mier just has to find one. Oh, this is what I'm talking about. You should have just kept all your feelings for yourself, Royus. After that, Satia orders Rainey to buy some pillows, but Mier just stares at her servant with a warning look on his face. She better not find one, or else her life would be in danger. Mier then volunteers to handle the matters within the household, but Satia insists, overthinking that since her husband isn't good with numbers, he might end up spending too much and might also mess up the inventory list. He then resorts to his charms and starts acting pitiful. Satia comforts him by saying that he is warm and kind-hearted, just what she likes about him. I sometimes feel bad for Satia's innocence of her husband's silliness. He then squeezes her hand and kisses it. It's the hand that used to work so hard for his estate, only to get blood all over it because of him. These hands. It means more to him than she could ever imagine. Satia blushes at his remarks and decides to dash out. When Rainey breaks the news that the pillows are all sold out in the market, suddenly someone screams from the other room. When one of his men reports to Satia about what happened, Mier has a grinning look on his face. It turns out there are bed bugs in the beddings and they have to burn it all. It wasn't limited to one guest room, but in every single one in the estate. And so Satia decides to conduct a deep cleaning within the premises. Suspicious, right? Mier, who's behind all of this, is now acting scared, hugging his wife as they get lovey-dovey, while Rainey makes a face on how devilish her master is. He will stop at nothing just to get what he wants. Seeing how teary-eyed Mier is, Rainey can't help but to think that he is like a leech who drains the energy of their lovely Duchess. Sure, the Duchess prefers a husband who can catch the bugs for her rather than a scaredy cat she needs to look after. The next morning, Satia wakes up with her husband sharing her pillow. When Mier blinks, he smiles at the sight of his wife staring at him while he is asleep. He then reaches for her and presses her body against his, whispering her name in his sleep. When he hears how loudly Satia's heart is beating, he realizes that he isn't dreaming at all. He pretends to stretch and rolls to the other side, while Satia keeps wondering all the possible reasons she can think of why her heart is beating so fast. And that includes the possibility of falling in love with her husband. She brushes off the thought, thinking maybe she acted that way because he called out her name. During breakfast, Satia notices that Mier's bangs are getting in the way when he eats. So she advises him to cut it, but Mier just looks for a hair clip and pins his bangs on top of his head. OMG, he looks so cute! I admit, he doesn't look devilish at all. Satia is now satisfied, looking at him as if he was an angel. She then opens up about her plan on visiting their new fiefdom to check the development of their latest farm clock and to prepare to take their chef and gardener to Chae. Also, since she's done looking over the new land, she'll be heading straight over to Chae. Mier is taken aback by her remarks, asking her once more if he hears it right. Satia explains that her visit is for the restaurant business. Mier wants to go with her, but she insists that he has a dukedom and people to protect. With a glum look on his face, he says that he isn't clever enough and that he can't do anything without her. He suddenly bursts into tears, dramatically exclaims that he might take the dukedom down with him. Here comes the drama king, everyone. Satia is now doubting if there's a possibility that the dukedom will fall into ruins in his hands given how he makes silly decisions. Also, she notices that he's been acting childishly lately. On the other hand, Mier thinks that now they're finally together after 3 long years, there's no way he's sending her alone to where Royus is. That person has been annoying him to no end, and his blood boils just thinking of the possibility that Satia might meet him in Chae. Shortly after breakfast, they receive an invitation to the ball hosted by the Duchess of Charbless. This is an opportunity to gather information about the latest trends within high society, so Satia thinks that it would be wise to mingle with other nobles straight away, given the fact that Mier has been given a dukedom. She just has to make sure that they never make fun of her husband again. Suddenly, 3 of Satia's people enter the room. One of them is her assistant, and the 2 are her secretaries. Mier's silly mind is acting up again, thinking that he is much more handsome than all of them. The catch is, very few people know about his looks. Also, it seems like Satia is being surrounded by handsome, competent men, and he finds it very annoying indeed. He then starts to criticize them one by one, only to get disappointed by his wrong assumptions. He then tells his wife to conduct their meeting within the room, telling her that he wouldn't spend another minute apart from her. Of course, he has to see whether these men have feelings for Satia or not. Sometimes, I wonder if he's kind of obsessive or just plainly out of his mind. Satia then starts their meeting about how someone purchased a lot of pillows in the market. Also, she's thinking that other nobles may be facing a similar problem. That's why it was sold out yesterday. She then orders their staff to investigate it and to find out who bought out all the pillows in the capital city. That night, Satia is still working, so Mier approaches her, telling her to rest. With his bathrobe exposing his toned body, she then grabs his robe and pulls it closer. I know you're probably thinking of something else right now, but Satia just tightens his robe to properly hide his revealing abdominal muscles, saying that she doesn't want him to catch cold. Mier laughs half-heartedly, completely disappointed by his attempt to show off. He then grabs her hand and presses it on his chest, asking what she thinks of it. Despite blushing, Satia is able to compose herself and tells him that he has some serious pecs. Mier frowns at the thought of her choice of words. He was kind of expecting her to say the word sexy, but he's definitely not one to give up so easily. In the bath, Satia can't believe she actually said that. She has a habit of concealing her emotions, but when she's alone, she easily gets flustered over him. After taking a bath, Mier offers to dry her hair while wearing his loose clothing again. In his defense, it makes him more comfortable, but on second thought, he should wear more fitting pajamas from now on. The next day, Satia receives the result of the investigation that after a mysterious person bought all the pillows in a single day, that person came back the next day and purchased all the beddings. Satia agrees that something doesn't feel right, so she further instructs her assistant to continue the investigation. It's funny how she thinks of her husband's innocence, but without knowing that she's the innocent one all along. Shortly after, the letter of appointment and their coronet commences, but there are no other people aside from them. The couple exchange compliments to each other and get lovey-dovey while ignoring the high official who administers their coronet. Seriously, this man wouldn't really care if an enemy is right in front of him as long as he can get lovey-dovey with his wife. When Satia receives the documents containing the legal rights to acquire the land in the south, she is beaming with joy, deeply pleased with the good news. The area boasts high-quality wheat and is famous for its produce. However, there's a reason why Mier initially turned down the dukedom. It is because these documents will be more complicated than the ones they dealt with in the estate. But as long as it makes Satia happy, he willingly accepts it. Back in the estate, Rainey is able to purchase new pillows and beddings. Also, she informs Satia about an anonymous donation of pillows and beddings to various orphanages, specifically the ones located at the outskirts of the capital. People are referring to this mysterious donor as the Pillow Angel. Satia is rather glad that such a donor is kind-hearted enough to help those who are in need, and so she orders her informants to stop the investigation. Satia is so innocent, and Mier surely knows how to bring out that side of her. As Rainey makes her way out of the mansion to see Mier, she then approaches him with a knife in her hand. As Rainey raises her hand with a knife, Mier already notices it and asks why she's sneaking up on him like that. Rainey is honest enough to admit that she was trying to attack him. Mier isn't paying attention to her failed attempt and asks if she did what he requested. These two keep arguing about petty matters like siblings who just want to see who gets roasted first. When Rainey says that she isn't a fool like her master, Mier stops digging the ground and points the shovel at her. Seems like someone no longer values her life, huh? Mier emphasizes that it was all an act, and if she wishes to die, then he would gladly make her wishes come true. I like the bond between these two, especially how Rainey always jokes around with him. Rainey refuses to die yet, because she still wants to eat a lot of food around the world. When asked about Satia's reaction, she makes a face first, saying that the pillowy angel is actually a devil in disguise. Mier smirks at the thought, happy of his wife's reaction. He's literally the spawn of Satan. He smirks and calls Rainey for another mission. Shortly after, Mier is having trouble buttoning up his pajama top, saying that everything came in a small size. Satia drops her pen in shock. At this moment, Mier might have to sleep shirtless. He used up too much energy trying to fasten the buttons, so he rips his top off in front of her. He then fans himself as sweat drips all over his face. Satia doesn't know where to look. I mean, come on, look straight. One look wouldn't hurt, right? He approaches her and tells her to go to bed, but Satia needs a few more minutes to finish the documents. Satia's heartbeat can't be any louder as she blushes how close he is with no shirt on. How can she be that strong to suppress her emotions? Mier, on the other hand, contemplates whether to switch character and become someone clever yet innocent or not. But he can't let that happen because His Majesty would have a field day with that. However, she is focusing on work as if he doesn't exist. It reminds him of their days together at the academy. On the day they met, she was immersed in reading, even though exams were all over. Suddenly, some other guys talked about how dumb Mier was. To his surprise, Satia cursed them for talking behind his back. Then, these guys approached her and called her a name. Satia Poinet. Her name reminded him of the flower poinsettia. Surely she was a weird one, talking to a bench she used to sit on. As soon as she left, Mier crouched to the ground below the bench. His eyes widened when he found out that she compares herself to a sunset flower. He then ordered Yulaka to inform the gardener to take good care of the sunset flower in his lawn. Yulaka argued that since it's a wildflower, it would clash with the blooms in the greenhouse. But Mier happily threatened her, saying that her life depended on the flower, so if it died, so would she. Since that day, he developed a habit. He took interest in sunset flowers. Under Ulaka's care, the sunset flower started to slowly flourish. But it wasn't only the flowers that flourished. His interest in Satia started to bloom too. He noticed her everywhere in the academy and came to a conclusion. He wanted her to look at him the way he watched her. The feeling when she'd take interest in him would definitely make his heart burst. Then he started to want more. During the festival, he approached her for the first time, telling her that it was unfair of her to study while everyone was out having fun. The look on his face when she responded to him is just too cute. This is the first time he gets embarrassed without his ever-convincing act. Looking at him, Satia sighed, thinking that he must be another innocent rich boy. She continued scribbling through her paper and thought he was a fool for saying that he liked being unfair. In fact, his life was all about being unfair. Still, Satia asked him to enjoy the rest of the party, but Mier couldn't let this opportunity slide. He then told her that he preferred quiet over the noise. Satia did too, so if he wanted to take a break, she pointed at the door, indirectly telling him to get lost. Mier went out the door without arguing further. The next year during the masquerade ball, he walked up to her again, but her face showed an expression of distaste. She immediately got up and walked away past him. Ever since that day, he stopped going to the library. And now, Satia is right in front of him as his wife. The woman who used to walk away from him is now within his reach. He then tickles her while she thinks of giving him a big whack on the head for making her cry as her laughter echoes within the room. Satia plops on the couch with Mier on top of her, saying that she can't rest with him looming over her like this. At this moment, all Mier ever wants is for her to give him a moment as he leans forward, closing the gap between them. Are you thinking what I'm thinking, guys? Mier, while on top of Satia and half naked, with his muscular body exposed, asked his lady for a little moment. He leans in even closer, to the point of actually lying on top of Satia. Mier did so to comment about how she smells so good, like roses. Unfortunately, it seems like his flirting didn't work on Satia, who asks him to get up off of her, but in a rather polite way. He ends up staring at her, but he dismisses it and plops himself down near the other side of the sofa, looking a little bit dazed and awkward. Satia then asks if he's sleepy, and he replies that he must be, and Mier scuttles off into bed like a little kid. All Satia could think was that he must have been really tired since he's been speaking nonsense. In actuality, the guy's having an internal dilemma on more than one thing. Mier's dejected that Satia seems to have not taken a liking to the nightshirt he was wearing, and he feels he made a mistake thinking both of them were having a moment. But more than that, Mier is contemplating whether or not to act innocently as opposed to using his well-muscled body in attracting Satia. The only problem is, he'll come off as immature. Regardless, he's the one who made his shy-type persona, so he has to stick with it indefinitely. Still, it doesn't mean that Mier likes it, though. The following morning, Satia is awakened by Mier's embrace. All she could think about, though, was how sure she was that she placed a pillow between them last night. She needn't bother too much, though, as Mier wakes moments after her because of the alarm. Satia immediately told him that he moved over their pillow barrier again last night, to which he only credited his bad sleeping habits for that. Something tells me that he did it deliberately. Anyway, the day goes on, so Satia gets up. She approaches Rainey, the maid, and asks her about Mier's pajamas. In particular, why they were so small. Rainey can only reply that they took what the tailor gave. Still, Satia asks that they make it 2 sizes larger next time. And so the couple boarded a carriage to be transported back to the capital. Satia tells her husband that they'll be in time for the Duchess of Charbalus's ball. However, Mier's mind is on something else. He comments about how beautiful the village had gotten. Satia reveals that all the roses grown here were used to make candies and other desserts. And when Mier said he wanted to try them, she promised she would have it arranged. But as a request, Mier asks if they could enjoy it together, and so they agree to spend the afternoon together. Mier also praises Satia for doing so good in the past 3 years. He also thanks her for it and pulls her to a big hug by the time they've reached their estate. As for repaying her efforts, Satia asks if she could ask a favor, to which Mier agrees. Unfortunately, Satia remembers something Mier shouldn't see, and so she rushes off to take care of it. Frantic and rushing, Satia runs to the potted plant Mier had given her all those years ago. Now it's chipped and the flowers are a little bit dried. Still, she kept it. Even so, she realized she had nowhere to put the pot. Fortunately, but rather surprisingly, Rainey was there to ask if there's something wrong. Satia instructs her to discreetly tell the gardener to transfer the flowers to a new pot, and once that's done, put the pot back into her room. With that, Satia swiftly leaves the room as quickly as she'd come in. As soon as she's gone, though, Mier makes an appearance by the window. The Duke asks his maid why she didn't report this supposed good news to him, to which Rainey replies she didn't think he'd be interested in potted plants. That's when Mier reveals he gifted Satia that pot, beaming with delight at the thought of her keeping it despite being damaged. Rainey asks him if she has to report every little thing like that back to him, and Mier says it's important to do so since he wants to know if Satia values the things he gives her. like the pot. The maid, seemingly annoyed, agrees, so Mier leaps from the window, but not before saying Rainey's life depends on her understanding his new rule on reports. He's just joking about that threat, right? Anyway, Satia returns first to the gardens where she left Mier. Moments later, he comes running through. For a moment, Satia gets terrified thinking Mier ran into Rainey by chance, but the Duke managed to excuse himself pretty well by saying he went to the bathroom. In actuality, Satia is embarrassed just thinking about his reaction if he found out she kept his gift. Out of nowhere, Mier says he'd like to visit his grave. Even though Satia says his headstone might have been removed, he still wants to go out of curiosity. Satia takes this chance to ask him something as well, regarding the 12 bodies found at the site of his disappearance. Mier's cover for this was that the Emperor wanted to provide a genuine, authentic feel for faking the Duke's death, hence the dead bodies. With that, Mier begins his trip. Upon visiting his grave, he had the visitor's log checked, finding Satia visited him remarkably often. He rides the carriage happily, as he orders them to pass by the square before heading to the Sayana orphanage. Unfortunately, his admiration for the square's rosy scent like his wife gets interrupted by a commotion. It's a weak-looking man attempting to take his child back from the orphanage. Mier intervenes, even laughing at the man's threats and giving him one of his own. He asks the headmistress of the orphanage to leave with the child so he could talk to the man in private. Mier rightfully guessed he was a drug addict and proposed to help. Mier promises the man some opium if he can answer his questions truthfully. The offer seems to entice the old man strongly. First, Mier asks why he wants his child back, to which the man just shouts because she's his daughter. The Duke asks him not to wail out that loud, and orders his men to let the addict go from his restraint. Again, in a menacing and rather cold demeanor, Mier asks him why he wanted his child back. Finally, the man admits that he can sell his daughter for some money, and so Mier smiles at him while saying he has to discuss something with the headmistress. He did ask his men to put the addict in his carriage and supposedly take care of him. Regardless, Mier enters the orphanage and asks the headmistress everything about the man and his child. It turns out that the addict who caused the commotion earlier was also a drunkard, which is why Mier theorized no one noticed the drug, and had been beating his daughter without a thought. When the village reported it and had to take away his child, he didn't even fight it. Mier asks to meet with the child herself, and moments later, out comes a skinny girl who said she was Euve Eloni, and that she was 11 years old. Mier likens her to Rainey, who was the same age as her when he took her in. Anyway, he says that he's a man who can punish bad people, and asks Euve for someone to punish. The girl stays silent though, clearly traumatized. And so Mier asks the headmistress to give him some privacy with her. He puts down his glasses and innocently promises to never let their secret let out. Finally, the girl opens up and says she wishes her father will disappear forever. And Mier, holding his darkness at bay, says he can make that happen. Afterwards, Mier arrives back on his estate a little late, as pointed out by Satia. Mier says he was out doing a good deed. Regardless, he immediately begins to be flirty with her, making Satia thinks he's a little lively from just visiting the dead. Mier also gives Satia a beautiful gem necklace, saying he bought it because it reminded him of her. Satia is a little surprised, and asking if there's an occasion, but accepts the gift nonetheless. Tomorrow comes, and Satia visits a tradesman where she happily finds her requested item, a clock, finished in beautiful detail. She and Rainey then stroll the street and find it with an overabundance of souvenirs and knickknacks. When Rainey notices a beautiful man, Satia expresses her disinterest. Satia admits to never had a type since she was busy earning money. This leads Rainey asking her why she married Mier in the first place. Although Rainey knows Satia and Mier's marriage was contractual by nature, she's still curious as to why her lady accepted. Satia reminisces of the time Mier came to see her with the agreement, thinking about how he said he wanted a competent woman by his side. With a slight smile, Satia admits she was tempted by his offer. Of course, the deal was better than being sold off or indebted to a loan shark. However, this makes Rainey think that the innocent Satia was seduced by her evil master, fearing that he offered her money knowing her monetary problems. What's more, Mier's a sweet talker. Suddenly, Rainey's attention is caught by something. She spotted a tiny glass cat amongst the trinkets, and she couldn't hide her excitement. As she shows her lady the glass cat, Satia gets reminded of Rainey's question about her type in a man. She concludes that she wants someone to see her for who she was, just like how Rainey pulled the cat out of a pile of knickknacks. And so Satia offered to buy her the glass cat, much to Rainey's delight. They then talk about how Mier looks up close, since Satia is the only one to see him without bangs. Satia, while blushing, admits that Mier looks so angelic. With that, Rainey concludes Mier had truly tricked Satia. Rainey then grabs a devil and angel doll from the stall, saying she'd like to give it to her lady as a thanks for the glass cat earlier. Though initially refusing, Satia eventually agrees after seeing Rainey get dejected. The maid also suggested a name for the devil, which was Stir, short for Devil Stir. She suggests that Satia name the angel doll with the first name she thought of, but she thought of Mier, so she let Rainey name it again. This time, it was TT. By the time they returned, Rainey was in such high hopes. Meanwhile, Mier finds the pair of dolls sitting by the bed. He finds it cute, as it reminds him of himself and Satia. He immediately abandons them and heads straight for Satia when she enters the room, though. Mier mentions the dolls, and he seems to get shocked upon hearing the name Devil Stir. Apparently, it was also his name in the underworld, but he's sure Satia wouldn't know that. And so he comments how Rainey must have come up with that, which Satia confirms. This strikes a nerve with the Duke, who finds himself being able to tolerate Rainey's practical teasing, saying it's better than someone else's. Anyway, he credits it to a hunch, but Satia gets a feeling of deja vu, thinking she heard their conversation before. Mier then asks if it was Rainey's gift, and Satia recounts how she had to accept them because of Rainey getting sad. Imagine Mier's annoyance and jealousy, which was enough to call Rainey for a talk the next day. Rainey seems to know what's coming for her, and so she tries to excuse herself by saying she has a stomachache. However, Mier says there's a bathroom in his office. Looks like that scolding is coming either way. And so, Mier confirms that Rainey is the one to name the doll, and she did so to play a prank on him. Rainey tries to be in a more joking manner, but it seems that her master's concerns are real. Thanks to that joke, Mier fears that his true identity has been discovered by Satia. He asks Rainey if she would like for him to do the same, if she'd also like Satia to know her past. Of course, Rainey refuses. Again, Mier states how tolerant he is of Rainey and her jokes. Because if they weren't jokes, then she'd be dead right now. At least both agree to how kind, allegedly, of a master he is. Rainey then remembers that she had already completed one task assigned to her from Mier. She reports that Satia doesn't have a type. The maid relates the events of their walk earlier, how she tried to distract Satia with a handsome man passing by, but she didn't pay any attention at all. This leads Mier to think his good looks wouldn't do him good in seducing Satia, which explains how she's immune to his supposed charm. Rainey did say that Satia praised his good looks though, saying she likened his face to an angel. This boosted Mier's ego, now confident that his good looks did have an effect on his wife. Rainey still jokes how Satia should get an eye doctor though, and they have a repeat about their joke-death conversation earlier. Rainey urges her master to just tell the truth that he loves her. Mier dismisses that, arguing that Satia would feel bad if she knew he lied to her, even asking Rainey's response if she was in her shoes. Mier admits he's scared because he has too much to lose. Regardless, Rainey pushes Mier to drop his stupid act, but even that he can't let go. He firmly believes Satia is staying because she thinks he's dumb. He then asks Rainey to leave, ending their talk. Moments later, a quiet rustle of the leaves can be heard, and Eli emerges from his master's window. Eli reports that the opium dealer has fled to Chae, much to the delight of Mier, who informs Eli he will be sailing there as well. While gone, Mier entrusts his estate to Eli, much to his shock. Anyway, Mier stays up for quite a while because he's been doing his work, so Satia goes to his study, telling him it's time for bed. He promises his wife he'll be done in a minute, but Satia urges him not to be too late. Glad he could ease Satia by reducing her work, Mier heads to bed. He snuggles close to Satia, bypassing their pillow barrier, only to see her awake and looking right at him. Busted! Mier could only mumble his words when he asks why Satia is still awake. She answers that she couldn't sleep knowing he was still working. But more importantly, she mentions how she thought Mier could only roll over their pillow barrier unintentionally when they slept. Looks like now's the time to turn the spotlights on Mier, as he swiftly transitions into his shy persona. He begins to cry and to look worried while saying he's afraid the assassins might come for him that night. Being attacked as a count traumatized him, and being near Satia puts him at ease. The female lead tries to comfort the supposed crying Duke, who even approached her for a hug. He even admits to himself how shameless he's acting. But even so, he gets to hug Satia, so he ultimately doesn't care. He thought how nice it would be to hug her forever, but even Mier realizes he can't act like a coward forever. Now, he thinks Satia sees him as a likable person, not someone to like. So Mier promises to protect her, but Satia questions how he could do so if he's like that all the time. Satia then urges him to take some lessons on varying subjects, like sword lessons and business and politics administration. Thinking back, Satia believes she's only there because Mier needs her to run the estate. Hence, it's better if he stayed clueless from a business standpoint. However, she wants him to be ready when their contract does run out. Satia admits to herself that she wants Mier to never be afraid again. And so she says they should get some sleep, and she turns her head away. Mier, however, stayed where he was. The Duke is thinking about all the tutoring and having to take lessons. Mier wonders how Satia could fall asleep so easily, unaware of his presence. And now he's the one having a hard time falling asleep. The next morning comes, and the couple heads to Duke Charblis's estate for his ball. There, though Mier wanted Satia to stay by his side, the latter urged the former to practice his social skills. If there's nobody he can talk to, she's sure someone else will approach him. Mier doesn't do a very good job at it, though, coming off as dumb in that sense. He hears the whispers of everyone, but all he could think of is how lucky he truly was to have Satia as a wife, even thanking her parents for how dumb they truly were. Unfortunately, he hears gossip about how he can't please Satia in bed, and when he finally found the culprit, Satia suddenly grabbed his face and pulled him in for a kiss. When she lets go, Mier seems to have forgotten where they were, or the people there, as he takes his glasses off and kisses her back. Passionately this time. Yes, it's finally happening! Even Royus, who's in the crowd, gets shocked. After sharing their passionate kiss, Satia gasps for air, asking her husband that although she knows he wants her, maybe they should save all that for the bedroom. Upon saying that though, even Satia realizes how embarrassing the words she's been saying. Luckily, Mier leads her out into the gardens. There, he asks what had happened. Apparently, Satia had heard all the bad-mouthing the other guests had been doing behind Mier's back. The comment about his incompetence in bed bugged her dearly, and so she took him in for a kiss to get back at those people. And since it resulted in their first kiss, Mier internally agrees to let the gossipers go, even calling himself a benevolent person. Vain is more like it, but sure. Anyway, now it's Satia's turn to ask. Despite being a little shy about it, she asks why Mier had kissed her back so passionately. Though in his mind he wants to say that he's been wanting to do so for a long time, he says it was because of pure instinct and the happiness he felt when she kissed him. He also reveals it's his first kiss, causing the two to blush like a tomato. Satia, on the other hand, keeps hers a secret, even quoting Mier about lives they've lived being unfair, causing the Duke to smile. Still, it was Mier who kissed first, according to Satia, as she merely pressed her lips to his. Regardless, he doesn't play down the importance of their kiss, especially because it was in front of guys like Royus. Eventually, Satia realizes that their kiss being important to Mier makes it seem like he has feelings for her, and so she admits it's her first time as well. He states his happiness and likens Lady Satia to a blush pink rose. Oh, just tear up the contract and get married for real already! Anyway, all this makes Satia doubt if she could leave for Chae the next day. Regardless, she'll miss Mier. The same can be said for Mier, who clung to her until it was time for her to go. Although, he asked for a kiss before she left, which she didn't bother obliging. While on the ship, Satia ponders her feelings that made her not want to ride the boat. Meanwhile, as soon as Satia's gone, Mier's glasses come off and he looks for Eli, possibly wanting to head to Chae himself right this moment. The boat sails towards Chae, carrying Setia's thoughts back to her mansion and her absent husband. As she gazes at the deep blue sea, she realizes the need to confront her emotions. In truth, Satia is in love with Mier, a kind and slightly foolish person, yet honest and innocent. On top of that, Mier is the only person who sees who she really is. Reflecting on the past, she never expected to fall for someone like him, but now she acknowledges that it must have happened long ago. Despite these feelings, Satia knows they can't endure. She cannot afford to fall in love because their contract ends in February. So she convinces herself that Mier's kindness is merely out of compassion, hoping to move on during her journey to Chae. One afternoon, while instructing Rainey to fetch documents, Satia inexplicably flinches. Uncomfortable feelings arise, but she chooses to dismiss them. In her bedroom, she recalls the previous night, Mier's lips pressing against hers and the warmth that accompanied it. Suddenly, a knock on the door startles her, and her heart races at the sight of Mier standing before her. That can't be, since she left him in the mansion, right? Satia, grappling with her emotions, believes she might be hallucinating. To regain composure, she forcefully shuts her eyes. Mier, concerned, questions her well-being. Setia, compelled by her feelings, reaches out, tenderly caressing his face. With a gentle response, she succumbs to the warmth, swiftly drifting into slumber. When she wakes up the next day, she notices that there's a stranger in her room, exposing his muscular back, a canvas of strength and grace. She checks herself first and is relieved that nothing happened between them. Suddenly, she retrieves her hidden weapon beneath the pillow as the man shifts, facing the ceiling. Thinking she's still in a dream, Setia is astonished to see Mier half naked beside her. Hold on, guys. We'll pause for a minute and scan this part. Honestly, this body is so perfect. Setia, still questioning reality, continues to press Mier's face, hoping to dispel any illusion and reassure herself. Mier responds with a slight groan, but Setia's desire to touch his lips persists. She remembers upon Mier's confession that his kiss was instinctive. Setia confesses that the feeling was mutual. The happiness of sharing her first kiss with him overwhelms her, so in a moment of newfound emotions, Setia's body moves instinctively, attempting to kiss Mier, who, unbeknownst to her, is already awake. Mier holds her face, inquiring if she's trying to force herself upon him. Dazed and bewildered, Setia is shaken by Mier in an attempt to snap her out of her shock. In this moment, the realization hits her that Mier's presence is no dream or product of her imagination. It's real. Seeking an excuse to mask her embarrassment, Setia claims she's caught in a dream where she witnessed him falling into an endless slumber, and only a kiss could rouse him. Mier gazes at her for a moment, and against her fervent hope, he appears to buy into her explanation, believing what she said. Though, I'm pretty sure he knows she's lying because she's a bad actress. Setia, curious about the estate and Mier's work, seeks reassurance. Mier, with a calm demeanor, assures her that everything is under control, even arranging for someone to stand in for him during his absence. And he did all these things so he could be with her, seemingly not wanting to separate from her again. Setia is getting red as she tightens her grip on the sheets, stating that Mier is being straightforward with his feelings. Unbeknownst to her, the reality is quite the opposite. Since the loss of Mier's parents, his life has been entangled in a web of lies. He crafted a false identity to avenge his family, deceiving nobles and the royal family in the process. Now he's pretending to be someone else, all in an attempt to avoid losing Setia. I understand that he doesn't want her to leave him, but our Setia deserves to know the truth. I hope it'll turn out fine. Suddenly, Mier shifts the conversation, probing Setia about her genuine feelings for him. Setia, embracing honesty, admits that initially she considered him a bit foolish. However, she recognizes his angelic beauty and kind heart. Though she can't deny her genuine love for him, she chooses to keep it a secret. In a surprising turn, Mier confesses that he was initially captivated by Setia's work, and like a wildflower appearing unexpectedly, he found himself developing deeper feelings for her. Upon hearing his admission, Setia's face flushes with embarrassment, unaware that Mier has fallen for her as well. This time, with a shy smile and blushing cheeks, Setia openly confesses that she's in love with him too. She's so adorable that even Mier can't contain her cuteness. Later that day, Mier savors the sea breeze, but Rainey observes a change in his demeanor toward the sailors. He directs them sternly, assigning a heavy workload. This sudden shift in behavior follows Mier, overhearing the sailors comparing him unfavorably to Royus. The sailors seem to prefer Setia ending up with Royus, citing Mier's lack of fashion sense and appeal. In response, Mier, irritated by their comments, demonstrates the consequences of angering him by ordering them around like dogs. Meanwhile, in her office, Setia grapples with the impact of Mier's confession. What began as a fake couple has evolved into something different, now that their feelings are mutual. Contemplating the future, a loud thud startles her, injecting an unexpected jolt into her thoughts. It turns out Rainey dozed off and accidentally bumped her head on the wall. Setia, showing concern, instructs her to apply some ointment to her head. As Rainey hurries out of the room, she encounters Mier, who appears to be in a better mood. Rainey suspects that he might be jealous of being with Setia as a servant, but Mier dismisses the idea, adopting a cocky demeanor, mentioning Setia's recent confession. Rainey, noticing that his smiles are even creepier than usual, points out that the divorce hasn't been called off, indicating that nothing has changed. In response, Mier insists that he won't allow it to happen because, in his view, they are already a genuine couple. Unfazed, Rainey jokingly suggests pushing him down the stairs since nobody wants to be married to a dimwit forever. Mier, with a playful demeanor, pinches her cheeks and reminds her to behave if she wants to live. With that, Rainey exits, harboring the intention to eventually reveal the truth to Satia. As much as I want to, it would be better if Mier tells her the truth. In her office, Satia inquires about Rainey's well-being, but is taken aback when she feels a kiss on her head. Apologizing for mistaking him as Rainey, Satia is surprised by Mier's presence. Mier, noticing Satia working late, encourages her to go to bed. Leaning in, he whispers his desire to share the bed with her. Startled, Satia abruptly stands up and slams the door behind her, making it clear that she has turned him down. Later that night, Rainey, occupied with her cat figurines, hears footsteps in the corridor. Prepared to grab her weapon, she is surprised when Satia requests to share the bed with her. While Rainey has no issue with it, she discerns Mier's signal, indicating harm if she agrees. Feeling trapped, Rainey has no choice but to decline. Just then, Mier emerges from behind the wall and extends his hand to Satia, urging her to go to bed. Rainey realizes that Mier approaches love like an assassin, maneuvering in the late hours of the night, a perfect time to accomplish his goals. She recalls Mier's words about the life of an assassin, emphasizing the importance of striking when the target's guard is down, or doing whatever is necessary to achieve the goal if the opportune moment doesn't present itself. No wonder they call him the Devil's Stir. Meanwhile, as they head to their room, Mier wears a somber expression and pleads with Satia not to distance herself. Satia, on the other hand, isn't actually trying to push him away. It's just that it's getting late and the idea of being alone with him in an enclosed space suggests something else. Satia takes a deep breath before withdrawing from Mier's touch. Unfazed, Mier smiles and suggests heading to bed, expressing a wish for Satia to touch him as she did before. As Satia drifts into a deep sleep, Mier turns to face her, contemplating the need for a proper proposal. He decides to take things slowly, not wanting to frighten her. Meanwhile, at the estate, Mier's imposter, growing bored with the charade, wonders how Mier manages to keep up the act for a decade without losing his sanity. As he's about to sleep on the sofa, he remembers how Mier warned him not to sleep on the bed, or else he'd kill him over and over again. In the midst of his complaints, the imposter detects 2 assassins in the room, a revelation Mier failed to disclose. Understanding the reason for his selection, he calmly deals with the intruders, effortlessly dispatching them one by one. It may be Mier's body, but this knight is just as cool as he is. Meanwhile, in Chae, Mier's enthusiasm to pursue the opium dealer is interrupted by the ship's crew announcement that they have arrived in Puhan. Satia, anticipating a busy day with the merchant group, informs Mier of her plans, expecting him to accompany her. However, Mier expresses a desire to go sightseeing instead. Don't fall for it, Satia. He still hasn't grown up, so don't get your hopes up. Just as Satia separates from them, Mier instructs her knights to disperse throughout the area, excluding Joe. Once Mier identifies their target area, he assigns the task to Joe, to find a gift for Satia. For a moment, I thought they were going to make a move towards their target. Joe, being quite popular with the ladies, has a good understanding of what women like. Recognizing Joe's expertise, Mier thought it would be wise to have him assist in selecting a gift for Satia. Upon entering the store, Joe starts browsing, while Mier requests the rarest and most expensive item available. Joe, noting Satia's preference for practical items, begins to protest. Before he can utter another word, Mier's expression shifts, questioning whether Joe has been daring enough to look at Satia in Mier's absence. Mier asserts that he never gave such an order. Leaning in closer, Mier whispers that even he himself doesn't dare to look at Satia, yet Joe dared to discern what she likes while Mier was away. We need the medics, guys! Joe argues that he had no hidden agenda and merely happened to notice what Satia liked. As the tension escalates, Mier intervenes by asking the store clerk for something that would appeal to a businesswoman, something rare, expensive, and practical. Continuing his admonition, Mier emphasizes to Joe that he does not want him looking at Satia in any way, intentional or not, expressing his deep anger about it. Joe, with a sigh of relief, is grateful that he won't face immediate consequences. When the store clerk returns with various items, Mier specifically inquires about a purple bracelet, an extravagant tafta worth 45 billion yuan. thinking that it doesn't look expensive that Satia would doubt, he purchases it together with the jade earrings. Joe is aware that Satia doesn't have pierced ears, but mentioning it would likely anger Mier again. But if they end up buying something she doesn't need, Mier will get angry and take it out on them. That's a tough one you got there, Joe. Hang in there. When Joe decides to speak up, Mier is already aware, finding it yet another trait he finds attractive in Satia. Determined to get her a gift she'll like, Mier decides that if Satia doesn't want to pierce her ears, he'll wear the earrings himself. After all, he wants a piercing that reminds him of Satia's jade eyes. So he doesn't mind wearing a couple's earrings on his own as long as Satia is by his side. What matters is that he's wearing the earrings while thinking of her. That night, Mier knocks and excitedly bursts the door open to greet Satia with a hug. After that, he shows her all the souvenirs that he purchased just for her. But he freezes when Satia tells him that she doesn't need anything and it's just a waste. Mier clenches his fists while looking away. He regrets not getting her anything since he was gone for 3 years, so he wants to compensate for it. Satia, understanding his sentiment, asks him to show her what he got. As Mier displays his purchases, he finally introduces the bracelet. Satia notices his hesitation and nervousness. Upon unwrapping the bracelet, her first concern is its cost. Mier reassures her, downplaying its expense, and promises to get her something fancier next time. As if it isn't expensive enough? That's a deeper grave you're digging, Mier. Still, he can't believe how Satia refuses a gift from a lover. As he wraps the bracelet around her wrist, Satia, perceptive as ever, inquires about its cost due to its luxurious appearance. Mier once again fabricates a story, but inwardly, he's pleased to see it compliment her even better than he had imagined. Satia notices that it is the same color as Mier's eyes, and that's exactly why he purchased it. He wants to mark her, signaling to the world that she belongs to him. And so Mier hugs her, making a request for her not to take off the bracelet. Acknowledging that others may know more about Satia than he does, he whispers boldly, urging her to reveal a part of herself that no one else has ever seen before. Something only he knows. I know you guys are thinking of something else too. On a night like this, with only the two of them, Satia's face flushes as Mier holds her in his arms. She finds herself speechless, her heart racing in the moment. Suddenly, Mier plants a tender kiss on her forehead and gently rubs her wrist where the bracelet rests. He suggests they go to bed, with the thought in mind that no one else will ever have her because she is already his. When Mier leaves to change into his nightly clothes, Satia's face betrays her embarrassment, realizing that Mier was simply suggesting they go to sleep. Satia flops onto the bed, feigning sleep by the time Mier returns. He gently brushes her hair and whispers a goodnight, expressing the hope that she dreams of him as he did last time. Though Satia pretends to be asleep, Mier can see through her act. The following morning, Mier holds hands with Satia, bravely facing his fear of getting his ears pierced. The knights, aware of his assassin background, avert their gaze, unwilling to witness the vulnerable side of their master. If I were one of the knights, I would probably be dead by now for laughing too hard. When Mier notices that one of his knights left, he just hopes that they're ready to face the consequences. Expressing the pain of the piercing, he refuses to let go of Satia's hand during her turn, warning the person not to cause her any distress. Mier, teary-eyed, assures Satia that everything will be all right and glares at the piercer, hinting a dire consequence if Satia experiences pain. To everyone's surprise, Satia doesn't feel anything during the procedure. In fact, it hurts her more to see Mier in pain. Just then, Satia informs everyone that they'll be heading south in the next 3 to 4 days. Mier suggests he can manage on his own during her work, and Satia feels proud of his growing maturity. However, as soon as he hugs her and refuses to let go like a child, Satia reconsiders her earlier praise. The knights struggle with the cheesy atmosphere too. Mier playfully reminds Satia that she forgot something, kissing him goodbye. Unable to handle the situation, Rainey dashes off, leaving the knights to endure the awkwardness of their master, who insists on a rough and passionate farewell kiss. This is literally a public display of affection. Are we going to witness something here? As Mier gently rubs her lips with his thumb, Satia, unable to contain the tension, reaches for his face and kisses him. She then promptly slams the door, accusing him of being shameless. Mier, aware of his actions, is actually trying to tone it down. Rainey and another knight enter, delivering the news that the investigation might take longer since the opium dealer seems to move at night. Bored, Mier instructs them to rest for the night to continue the operation after dark. Rainey, curious, asks about Mier's plans for considering the possibility of Satia rejecting his confession. Observing from a distance, Rainey notes that Mier has been charging towards Satia like a bull, while Satia fends off his advances. Rainey finds it unusual for Mier not to accompany Satia these days, wondering if he has decided to stop acting foolish. Though Mier has been restraining himself to avoid suffocating Satia, Rainey advises him to maintain his composure. Satia is sensitive, and if he treats her like a subordinate, she may run away without looking back. Mier goes silent for a moment, but proceeds to spy on Satia, which is against the law even if they're lovers. Up on a tree, he keenly observes how lovely she is. If he was the wind, he would be able to caress her body that would fluster her even more. Suddenly, he realizes that Satia is already gone in the library. Satia heads to a tailor shop to purchase outfits for her husband. The tailor is shocked, thinking Satia remarried, but she clarifies that her husband came back from the dead. The tailor, aware of Royus' long-standing affection for Satia, is astonished, realizing he now has no choice. As Satia hands over Mier's measurements, the tailor calls someone named Precious to come out. To Satia's surprise, this person has long silverish blue hair and a pretty face, leading her to assume it's a woman. However, Precious turns out to be a he named Verdo, a designer with a keen eye for fashion. To avoid penalties and breaching the contract, Verdo must dress like a girl as per the tailor's orders. When Verdo asks for more details about Mier to design suitable outfits, Satia describes his eyes as the same color as her bracelet. Verdo then notices it's a tafta worth at least 40 billion yuan. Satia shivers, realizing her bracelet is worth more than her parents' debt, recalling why Mier was hesitant and nervous when giving it to her. She thinks that maybe he doesn't want her to return it, but it's way too expensive for her. Outside, Mier eavesdrops in their conversation and is now panicking because Satia found out about the bracelet. Now what should he do? Satia appreciates Mier's honesty about his feelings, but if he continues to disappoint her, she's adamant about leaving a dim-wit like him. Though Mier can't bear the thought of that happening, he acknowledges Satia's capacity for such actions. Left with no choice, Mier decides to issue a genuine apology. In the afternoon, while in the carriage, Mier squeezes Satia's hand and confesses that he lied about the bracelet. Surprisingly, Satia isn't bothered by the admission. In fact, she expected him to make excuses for the lie, but he chose honesty instead. Nice move, Mier. Satia reflects on her parents' tendency to blame their children for their own wrongdoings, making Mier's admission of fault refreshing. She assures him that it's okay, believing he must have had a reason for his actions. She expresses gratitude that he thought of her when he saw the bracelet and confesses that she does like it, appreciating its reminder of his purple eyes. Despite the sentiment, Satia contemplates returning the bracelet. However, the thought of parting with the reminder of Mier's eyes makes her hesitant. She warns him that the next time he buys something expensive and lies about it, she will break their contract and sell the bracelet to cover the penalty. Mier promises not to repeat the mistake, and Satia refrains from scolding him, making him fall for her even more. Meanwhile, at sea, a red-haired assassin, Bianca Norley, suffers from motion sickness. Spotting land brings her relief, and it's revealed that she's Mier's trustworthy ally. Hours later, Rainey encounters Bianca while working, wearing a horrified expression as to why Bianca is in Chae. Early in the morning, Rainey knocks on Mier and Satia's room. When she enters with a particular grin plastered on her face, Mier could tell that she had something up her sleeve. Why else would she be smiling in such a way? Rainey announces that His Grace, Mier, had a guest waiting for him. As he and Satia make their way to the hallway, he puts on another public display of affection. Although Satia doesn't entirely dislike it, she still feels quite embarrassed when people witness their kiss. But that's exactly why Mier did it in the first place. With a haughty smile, he acknowledges the presence of Royus Xiao in the hallway. Look at him trying to make Royus jealous! Mier enters the sitting room to greet his guest, however, he immediately clenches his features when he sees who it is. Before him sits Bianca Norley, the vice master of the assassin group and apparently someone who openly admires Mier. Bianca delights seeing him, however, the same cannot be said for Mier. After a series of playful banter between them, matters get serious when Bianca informs Mier that Eli was attacked. Since Eli is tasked to serve as Mier's Koi, The attack means that nobles or even assassin groups are after Mier's life. As the group wraps up their conversation, Satia suddenly enters the room. Hearing that her husband had a guest, she merely wanted to introduce herself. Without delay, Bianca gets up from his chair and kisses Satia's hand as a greeting. The act immediately makes Mier's blood boil. LOL, I just know he did that on purpose to get on Mier's nerves. Bianca introduces himself as Anju Vita, one of the knights who protected Mier while he was in hiding. Hearing this, Satia offers him her warmest greetings for being there for Mier. Before they could chat more, a maid informs Satia that she had a visitor, thus cutting her time with them short. When Satia leaves the room, Mier hastily follows suit, even requesting Rainey to accompany him. He intercepts Satia in the hallway and he kisses her hand before she could leave. After all, her hand deserved to be cleansed after Bianca's kiss earlier. Possessive as ever, he tells her that only he and nobody else could lay their lips on her. In a quick motion, he pulls Satia and kisses her deeply. Seeing this, Rainey could only revolt at her master's tactics. Poor Rainey, Mier really just called her just so she could cringe at all this lovey-dovey act. Mier's actions may be childish, but it leaves Satia blushing like the reddest rose. Royus Xiao appears in the hallway where Mier and Satia are. Apparently, he is Satia's visitor. Initially, he wanted his visit to be a surprise, but he didn't realize that Mier would be tagging along. Oh, wow. Talk about awkward. The three of them make their way to the sitting room, and it's undeniable that the tension and bloodlust between Mier and Royus is hard to miss. It did not occur to Royus that Satia would be visiting Chae with her husband. Hearing this, Mier emphasizes how much he missed his wife, so much so that he never wants to part with her again. What a sly duke. He's really putting on a show there. In all their exchanges, both men seem to be competing for Satia. When Royus finally mentions the intention of his seeing Satia, he discloses that he wishes to join her for lunch. Unfortunately, she already has prior plans. Seeing how his wife seems to be busy with work, Mier offers to entertain Royus in her absence. Although she has a bad feeling about it, she concedes as she has more work to do. Alone with each other, both try to be as civil as possible. However, loving the same person proves to be a challenge as the growing tension becomes more obvious. Breaking the ice, Royus asks how Mier and Satia met. Mier ponders on the tricky question. He has to be careful with his details. He divulges that they first met during the masquerade ball in the academy, although it was unbeknownst to Satia that it was him under the mask. He continues on that it was like destiny for them, as later on they met again in an employment agency where he helped Satia through her hard times. I mean, that's one way of putting their whole contractual marriage. As Mier recounts all this, in his mind he wanders down memory lane. His assassins had just found a perfect match for someone to work with their plans. She had exceptional credentials, which is why they found her fit for the role. Curious, Mier reviews the paperwork and finds that it is Satia who they are eyeing. Mier finds out about her situation and her struggle for freedom from her parents. He contemplates on the matter. For him, Satia was someone who deserved to shine and achieve great things, so if she were in a slump now, he'd have no second thoughts on helping her. After all, in a month's time, their plans would be executed and he'd be announced as deceased to the public. Should he fail his mission, he would find great joy in just knowing that she'd remember him. Snapping himself back to reality, he mentions that although he and his wife have different personalities, they are still compatible in many areas. This guy really takes any chance he gets to spite Royus. Unlike a happily married Mier, Royus discloses how his situation is more of a one-sided love. Hearing this, Mier indulges him by complimenting how popular he probably is with others. Quick as ever, Royus replies that unfortunately, he isn't popular with the one he loves. A subtle smirk graces Mier's face, but immediately vanishes when Royus speaks again. He remarks that he feels his feelings would be reciprocated anytime soon. Wait, what? Mier is taken aback, and for a moment, it is as if the world stopped for a while. Was Satia falling in love with Royus? Mier couldn't believe he heard such a thing. What did Royus mean by that? Was he secretly threatening his life with that statement? He grins at a smiling Royus from across the table. As he eyes him, he figures that his friendly demeanor is most definitely just a facade. What are the chances that Eli, who was pretending to be Mier, would be attacked as soon as Satia left for Chae? Nobody from Mier would dare attack him in fear of getting on His Majesty's bad side. Yet someone still dared an attempted assassination on him. He pieces out his details and realizes that Royus was in Mier that day that Eli was attacked. It's unmistakable. Mier's assassin instincts are tingling. He's sure that Royus is behind the attack. With another grin, he congratulates Royus and likewise displays a friendly look. Back in his room, Mier thinks of all the ways he could get rid of Royus. Wow, he must really hate him for him to think of more than 3 ways to eradicate him. Suddenly, Satia barges into the room and feels apologetic for intruding while he was resting. He jolts upright to greet Satia and she calls him to lunch. Hearing this, Mier is confused. Didn't Satia turn down Royus' invitation for lunch because she said she had a prior engagement? As it turns out, Satia merely declined Royus' offer as she wants to have lunch with Mier. This makes Mier blush and smile. Mier is so cute when he turns red. Before the two head out for lunch, Mier takes Satia's hand and asks a favor from her. He wishes for her to refer to him by his first name. She is stunned by his request. To refer to him by his first name would be so intimate. Just thinking about it makes her fluster and blush profusely. Hesitantly, it takes a while for both of them to use each other's names. When Mier calls her Setia, the blood rush to her cheeks are impossible to hide. Likewise, hearing Satia refer to him as Mier, he could hardly control himself as he blushes and pulls her close to him. The guy is obsessed with her. Look, he's as red as a tomato. Later that afternoon, Mier meets with Rainey, Bianca, and the rest of his team. They inform him that they've located the opium dealer they were tracking. As Mier sends his team to track the source, he halts and calls for a division. He declares that only 6 will go, while Bianca and 3 others will remain with him. Hearing this, everyone is curious about the situation. Stating their curiosity, he tells them that someone had dared to provoke him and that the team may have to defend themselves against the assassins of Chae. The air around them seems to have turned ominous as Mier tells them to ready themselves to hunt. Ooh, we'll be seeing a showdown of brute assassin force for sure! A look of worry flashes on Rainey's face. The hunting game is when they purposely release their prey to gather information on them. Could it be that their master, Mier, has found out something worrisome? It seems like serious trouble is brewing around the corner. After dismissing his fellow assassins, Mier heads out to his and Satia's quarters. As they go to bed, he cannot help but want to be closer to his wife. To his contempt, she blows off all his attempts, from moving closer to asking for a kiss. Persistent as ever, he keeps pestering her with his request. Soon enough, she allows him to give her a single kiss. With no delay, he plants a kiss on her, making both of them blush profusely. They're so cute together. They're like teenagers who had just fallen in love. Later that night, Mier awakes and joins his fellow assassins. Despite their behest, he still stays with them. It would do the opposition well that Mier taught them a lesson that he's no easy target. As one of his teammates scouts the premises, the assassins of Chae immediately make their move against Mier. He may be up against 2 assassins, but that doesn't mean he's losing. In quick strides and precise movements, Mier takes down the first assassin with blue hair. The only one left to take care of is the female assassin. With a clean slice, he's able to end her life with no trouble. That's our Duke, all right. He's not as weak as everyone thinks. But as soon as the woman falls to the ground, Mier's sword falters at the sight before him. Standing before him and witnessing all the bloodshed is none other than his wife, Setia, who had awoken from the commotion. No! The clanging of his sword is heard. Silence engulfs the blood-stained hallway where Mier and Satia are in. With wide eyes and shaky breath, she takes in the sight before her. Calling out for him, she could hardly believe that he had done all this. Oh no, I didn't expect Satia to find out about his identity like this. There are nights when suddenly you wake up for no reason. Tonight, as fate would have it, Satia would experience that. As Satia sits awake in her chambers, she realizes that Mier was no longer beside her. Thinking much of his absence, she gets up and tries to look for him, but suddenly, noises from outside her bedroom catch her attention. Curious as to what the commotion could be, she opens her bedroom door and is greeted by a gruesome sight. 2 people lay still and lifeless before her, and at the center of the bloodbath stands her husband, Mier. That must have been a horrifying sight for her. Not knowing what to make of all this, she retreats back into her room and shuts the door. It all seems like a dream to her. Surely that isn't the same Mier she admired for his innocence, right? Over and over she tells herself that what she witnessed isn't real. Or perhaps it's just that she doesn't want it to be real. Alone in her room, she cries everything out as she rethinks their whole relationship and rethinks Mier's entire identity. No, I hope she won't leave him. Let him explain, please. Outside the room, Mier stills himself as the events sink in. Satia has seen him kill a person. She looks so shaken and shocked. As he leaves the scene, he cleans up and reflects on the earlier events. He planned to tell her everything. It's just that he was scared she'd push him away, but not everything is too late. Rainey barges into the quarters Mier retreated to. In tears, she expresses her worry of Setia leaving the Lunaria household. He reassures her that she should trust him. He plans to come clean about everything from this moment onwards. Finally, he would tell her everything. Mier, you better do everything you can to keep her. As he thinks of a way to tell Satia everything, his mind wanders back to the past. For the sake of the mission, he had to pretend to be a complete fool so nobody would suspect him. He had to carry everything in secrecy, even having to hide the fact that he was alive. But one day, upon receiving a letter that Satia was going to attack the bandits' hideout, he simply couldn't stop himself from seeing her. He observed her from afar, worried that her life might be at risk. When danger came close, he was just about to intervene to protect her, but she proved not to need his help when she put the bandit to his demise. Upon going back into hiding, Mier was met with the prince's fury for his rash actions. He looks like he's ready to chew Mier out. Secrets are meant to be kept, especially when it's your existence being kept a secret. The prince could hardly believe that Mier had gone out to see Satia. The guy's in love. There's no stopping him when it comes to his beloved. The glare he directed at him could have shot daggers out of his eyes. Mier was truly too much to handle. This little incident of theirs was enough to prompt the prince to threaten Mier's exclusion should he continue to behave irrationally. Although Mier was against all this, he still understood the gravity of his actions. But love really does drive him crazy. Being raised by a mother who was abandoned by her husband, of course, the prince had no idea how love felt. Ultimately, he interjects that not a single peep should come out of Mier until coronation day. Snapping himself back to reality, he fixes his resolve in telling Satia the truth. Rainey remarks that for the first time, she doesn't trust him. Once more, he reassures a crying Rainey to trust that he can fix things between Satia and himself. You better! Later that night, he makes his way back to their quarters. At first, she doesn't react when he climbs back to bed, but as soon as he settles down, she sits upright and turns to confront him. How could he lie to her about such things? He feigned innocence and purity, things she loved most about him, and now all of it seemed like a lie. With so much conviction, she asks him why he lied to her. Hearing her voice almost break, he keeps silent for a moment before answering. She is his only weakness. Where should he even begin? His whole life was almost a lie. How will he even answer truthfully without making her run for the hills afterwards? Finally, he speaks and tells her the truth. He begins telling her about his capabilities of killing. Not just insects, but humans too. Very carefully, he explains how the ones he got rid of earlier were assassins sent to kill him. After the first batch of assassins failed to kill him back in Alair, now they were able to track him in Chae. She is alarmed at the fact that assassins were sent after him. Who would do such a thing? Well, I guess it's a good thing that she's still worried. It means she still cares for Mier somehow. He proceeds to tell her that they're still unsure of who's behind the attacks. He admits that he hasn't been completely honest about his identity either. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. But he loves Satia too much. He wants to be with her no matter what. But how could she believe in him after everything that's happened? Before Mier continues to explain everything, he asks her if she hates him now, knowing that he's capable of assassinating people. Her eyes widen at his question, and for a moment, she is speechless. Could it be that she hates him now? The silence between them is deafening. Finally, Satia speaks. She too has done her fair share of killing, both bugs and human alike. Although she's not proud of it, sometimes it's necessary when you're in a situation that threatens your life. I like how she understood that part about him. I really didn't expect that. What could Mier do if he were up against assassins? Of course, it's kill or be killed. But Satia ponders on the most important question. How could he lie to her? He loved you, that's why, but yes, it was still wrong of him. Mier's expression contorts slightly. Again, he thinks of where to begin, but for her, he would do his best to explain everything, even if it means digging up his past. Oh, I love it when we get to know about his past. At a young age, Mier had been exceptional at his studies. So much so that even His Highness in the past complimented his wits. See? He's not really a dimwit. Aside from being intelligent, he was known for his charm. However, he hated that part about himself. People would stalk him, maids would creep up on him in his sleep, all because they found him to be so handsome. It was unsettling to experience all that as a child. The death of Mier's parents took a great toll on him. His Highness had explained that although it was made out to be a carriage accident, the Emperor and Empress were behind it. Together, both young men decided to avenge their families. They would execute their plans in secret. Mier would have to make sure nobody suspected him. Geez, that must have been a lot of pressure on a little boy. At age 11, Mier had approached a reputable assassin in the underworld. Since he refused to assassinate the Emperor and Empress, he decided to be the assassin's apprentice instead. He would train harder than anyone so that he may bequeath death and vengeance by his own blade. As he trained in the Assassin's Guild, he met Bianca shortly. They were 7 years apart, and he had always thought that he was a weird one. Nonetheless, the two got along despite the constant quarreling and annoyance. Even though Bianca annoys him, deep down he knows he's a dependable and skilled assassin. Assassins had to hide their identities if they were to make it out in the real world. Where Bianca was an actor, Mier was a count, student, and assassin in one. Finally, at age 15, he received his first solo mission as an assassin. Oh, I wonder what his mission will be. Later that night, Mier looks annoyed since he needs to dress as a woman in the mission. But then again, he needs to be in character since his target is the second son of a viscount who defiles and drives ladies to horrible self-inflicted ends. Afterward, Mier instantly sees his target and approaches him while acting like an innocent lady, making the man quickly start to make his advances after seeing how pretty Mier is, which infuriates Mier more because of how perverted the man is. Thus, he doesn't waste time and ends the man. A pervert does deserve death as a punishment. While walking back, Mier suddenly hears a child pleading for help, and upon looking at it, he sees a man abusing the child. Thus, he quickly moves and disposes of the man. Mier helps the child by telling her to go to Shana's orphanage to have a better life, but the child refuses and begs to take Mier with her. He reluctantly accepts the child, now known as Rainey. A few years later, while Mier is having a meeting with his master, a butler informs them that the vice master is a traitor. After learning this, the master instructs Mier to kill the vice master, which Mier reluctantly accepts since the vice master is a level SS, and he is only a level S. However, his master convinces him that if Mier defeats the vice master, then he will be a level SS. Before leaving, the master reminds Rainey to protect Mier, which Rainey quickly agrees to. After 3 days of searching and spying, Mier gets a chance to fight the vice master and is able to defeat him after a grueling duel. Upon arriving at the headquarters, Mier and Rainey are surprised to witness the place in ruins and their master dead. While the funeral is a quaint one, Mier unexpectedly receives a letter from the late master stating that he is the new master and instructing him to seek revenge. As the years pass, Mier continues his plan, merely attending the academy to see Satia, and later proposes a contractual marriage. Afterward, Mier then fakes his death to carry out the revolution, which Gerald helps him with. After listening to Mier's story, Satia feels overwhelmed and sad for Mier, as he has given up his whole life for revenge. He is surprised to see a worried face after asking if she is going to leave him, while also sharing with Satia that all that is left for him is Satia. Hearing this, Satia quickly hugged Mier, while still sad because of what Mier had gone through, after explaining why he hadn't told his wife about this, causing Mier to freeze at Satia's action. Next, Mier honestly tells Satia that he is aware of her financial difficulties in the past, because he also owns the agency that worked on this case, and he's now pushing for a contractual marriage after finding out that Satia will be sold off to a harnot. Satia starts to question Mier when he begins to like her, as she can't remember talking to him. Mier explains that it all started after he heard her curse like a sailor, and it piqued his interest. As the days pass, Mier starts to follow her and sees that they are the same and them both feeling lonely. As Mier continues to follow Satia, he then starts to feel solace in her and begins to think that watching her isn't enough anymore. Afterward, Mier innocently asks if Satia will leave him by using the bracelet to break the contract. Satia assures him that she'll never leave him, making Mier happy and content. But Satia reminds Mier that he must never again keep secrets and lies from her. Later, when preparing to sleep, Mier starts to complain about the curtain being placed in bed, but Satia reminds him that it's his punishment. However, Mier doesn't hear Satia and swiftly pulls her into a kiss. but then stops midway after being reminded by Satia not to go overboard. They're such a cute couple. Meanwhile, a guard reports to Royus about what happened. After learning this, he becomes curious and feels bothered about Mier, as he had left Satia alone for 3 years and now shows up, snatching Satia from him, who had worked so hard to open up to him. The next morning, while walking, Satia sees Rainey talking to the guards, making her realize that the dead bodies last night are already gone. The place is clean as if nothing had happened. Satia turns to Rainey and concerningly asks about her eyes, as they are puffy. Still, Rainey assures her that she's fine. Thus, Satia instructs Rainey to add more guards, which she happily obliges. Afterward, when Satia arrives at their home, she is stunned to see Mier fresh out of the bath, wearing only a towel around his waist. This sight makes Satia blush, but she quickly calms herself while walking away from him also to take a bath. Well, I can't blame Satia for staring at Mier's body. Looks perfectly sculptured. Later, Mier approaches Satia after her bath to ask for a morning kiss. After seeing Satia's graceful motion and emotions, Mier leans in and asks Satia not to hide her feelings, which Satia agrees to, making Mier smile. After changing, Satia quickly walks out of their room and leaves Mier. When he is about to follow Satia, Rainey approaches him. Hence, he assures Rainey that she doesn't need to worry about what Satia will say, since she already knows who they are and accepts them, making Rainey happy. Next, Bianca hands Mier the report stating that Royus ordered the assassination. He then assigns Bianca to deal with their deliveries, taking Rainey to join him in shopping. When this happens, Bianca starts to protest since she also wants to join them, but Mier doesn't mind Bianca's acting. While in the carriage, Satia opens up to Mier about what will happen to her now since she doesn't need her anymore to run the estate. But Mier quickly tells Satia that he needs her and can't live without her. Mier, why are you so romantic? Mier leans towards Satia and assures her that she can do whatever she wants and can continue managing the merchant group. After Satia starts to notice Mier opening his shirt, she quickly opens a book and pretends to read it, making Mier fume with jealousy over the book, which makes him play second fiddle to it. Mier then starts to bother Satia and tells her to play with him, seductively leaning towards her, which surprises Satia and catches her off guard when Mier kisses her. Even when Satia tries to protest, she still doesn't win, as she also feels the tension between them. Satia and Mier arrive at the Southern Chae temporary housing. While Satia is drying her hair, Mier approaches her and tries to seduce her again. Still, Satia quickly comments about finding a jeweler who will pay handsomely for her bracelet, prompting Mier to quickly back down. Oh, Mier, you're so funny and in love! 10 days later, Mier and Satia arrive at a famous restaurant that serves delicious jelly made from sweet beans. While Mier is enjoying the dessert, the owner giggles, thinking Mier is a lovely husband to Satia. Next, Satia hands the owner a beautiful clock that costs a fortune. Seeing this, the owner starts to admire it, but then asks what they need in return. Satia explains to the owner that she wants to know their recipe, as they plan to open a shop that sells the same dessert with an Alabrian twist. Noticing that the owner disagreed with the proposal, Satia persistently told her that she would do anything. Hearing this, the owner then asks Satia and Mier to plow her land, to which they instantly agree. Next, while Satia, Mier, and their servants are busy gardening the land, their butler is furiously ranting to them that they don't need to plow the land and let their servants do it on their behalf. Still, Satia continues to do so, and even tells the butler to return home if he will not help them. Later that night, Satia and Mier are preparing to sleep. Seeing that Satia's body is aching, Mier offers her a massage, which Satia accepts. She also suggests that she massages him later, making Mier feel excited about the prospect of Satia touching his body. Mier, dear, if you think ahead, you might be disappointed later. Mier then starts to massage Satia, and while being massaged, Satia tells him that she appreciates Mier's support. Still, Mier is so confused on Satia massaging him later that she is carrying his whole body. Afterwards, Satia announces that it is her turn to massage Mier, and Mier quickly positions himself in bed. When Satia begins to massage him, Mier is stunned after realizing that Satia is determined to put pressure on his back, and even uses all her force. Because of this, Mier quickly gets up and tells Satia that he doesn't need to be massaged. The following day, Satia and Mier continue plowing the lands, and from afar the owner is impressed that the couple is not like other nobles who give up and complain about how difficult the task is. The owner then approaches Satia and asks her to join her in the kitchen. Rainey also follows them. On their way to the kitchen, Satia sees a slave being beaten by the master. Because of this, Satia excuses herself and approaches the scene. Satia asks the master of the enslaved person how much she's willing to sell him for, but the master informs Satia that he's injured. Thus, Satia becomes aware that even if the master sells the enslaved person, he can't get his money's worth due to the injury. So, Satia starts to propose to the master to sell the slave person to her, and she's even willing to pay 1 million won for the slave, which the master quickly grabs the offer. After the transaction, Satia instructs Rainey to help the enslaved person while she and the lady owner proceed to the kitchen. Upon arriving at the kitchen, the owner starts to explain to Satia that the place they are is also their storage facility, and all their ingredients are meticulously prepared. Right now, the owner wants Satia to help in preparing the ingredients, which Satia obliges. Meanwhile, after treating the enslaved person, Rainey starts a conversation with him by asking if he wants to trim his hair, which Satia, his master, would also like him to do. Thus, the slave agrees to do it. While trimming, Rainey starts to share that their master is not like others, since Satia has a compassionate soul. Next, Satia arrives in the room, thus Rainey informs her that the enslaved person has already been treated by their physician and left the room. Alone, Satia notices that the slave quickly rises. She assures him that it's fine to rest, but the slave tells her that slaves aren't allowed to sleep in front of the owner. The slave quickly leans over to Satia, thinking she has purchased him to be her brother. Dude, beware of your new master's husband. He's a jealous one. Satia quickly moves away and explains to Jongsik that she purchased him because she wants him to help the people in Chae how to grow crops. Hearing this, the man starts to understand and feels glad of Satia's intention. Satia also suggests to Jongsik that he change his name, and he then asks Satia to name him instead. Satia tells him that from now on, Jongsik's name will be Harv Mel, and also reminds him to stop calling her master and instead call her boss, to which Harv agrees to. Meanwhile, as Mier is walking, an older man starts to run towards him, calling him Snowpuff. However, the man is then blocked by Satia, who instantly informs him that he has the wrong person, causing Mier to hug Satia from behind quickly. The older man again persistently tells Satia that the person behind her is Snowpuff, a reincarnation of his beloved puppy, making Mier smile at the person while explaining that he is not a dog. Later, while walking back home, Satia informs Mier that she has purchased a slave to assist with their crop production, which Mier approves of, as he trusts Satia's judgment. Upon arriving, Satia introduces Harv to Mier and the worker, instructing them to work together in the fields. Alone, Mier comments to Satia about her choice of Harv's name, and Satia realizes that Mier is jealous, which Mier doesn't deny. Mier then moves closer to Satia and starts to cling to her, making Satia move away since she wants to focus on her walk. This action made Mier sad since he thought couples always clung to each other, but in their situation, he was the only one who was clingy. Oh, poor Mier. The following day, the lady owner announces to Satia that she'll be giving her the recipe, making Satia excited. The owners again comment on how adorable the couples are and praise them for their hard work in the fields. Afterwards, Satia and Mier stumble across a shop with hoes that Satia intends to buy. They decide to purchase the supplies instead. Upon entering, they are surprised to learn that the owner of the shop is the same older man who called Mier Snowpuff. Mier approaches the man and informs him that they want to purchase all the garden hose. The man quickly agrees and even tells them that everything is on the house, but Mier doesn't accept this and wants to pay for the materials. Next, on their way out, Satia and Mier encounter the man's son, who apologizes to them for his father's actions the last time. Mier quickly assures the son that everything is fine. Upon walking away, Mier suddenly hears the son talking to the father, saying Mier looks like Snowpuff, which makes Mier feel annoyed, but they brush it off. Mier then looks at Satia and starts to praise her for being a proper lady, but Satia doesn't believe him since her life is anything but correct. Minutes later, Satia and Mier arrive near their carriage, and Satia instantly sees Harv and approaches him, with Mier also following. Mier tells Harv that if he needs anything, he can always come to him, making Harv question how someone like Mier can be so angelic. Afterward, while Mier is walking, he notices Rainey opening a jelly red bean, making him instantly approach her. It seems like Mier is a reincarnation of the dog. Seeing that Rainey doesn't want to give her last dessert to him, Mier offers that he will pay for the dessert 20 times, making Rainey instantly agree and leave Mier alone. When Mier is about to eat the jelly red bean, Satia appears in front of him. Hence, he unwillingly asks if Satia wants some. But luckily, she declines and informs him that she'll be waiting inside the carriage. Later that night, after Mier's bath, he's excited to see Satia in their room, but is furious to learn that she went to the night market without him. Mier quickly leaves to follow Satia, leaving the guards curious since they have never seen Mier lose his cool before. Meanwhile, Joe is trying his best never to accept the dessert that Satia is giving him, but Rainey also convinces him that this will be their little secret. Hence, Joe starts to enjoy the dessert. As Satia is walking around, she then sees a shop selling jelly red beans and instantly remembers that Mier loves them. Thus, she buys boxes of it to give to Mier. Upon arriving home, Satia notices that Mier is nowhere to be seen, so she proceeds to read. "Satia, you really are an anti-romantic." A few minutes later, Mier suddenly appears in front of Satia and begins to ask why she left him and went out with Rainey when he also wants to have a date with Satia. Mier continues to pour out his disappointment at being the only one who wants to spend more time with his spouse. After listening to Mier, Satia then starts to open up to him, explaining that she only went out without him after being referred to by him as a proper lady, as the word proper means survival to her growing up. Knowing this, Mier quickly apologizes to Satia and comments that even if he can't fully understand why she dislikes the word, he still admires her for being one, as that is what he loves about her. Satia then lightens the mood by showing Mier the gift she bought for him, and seeing that it's a box of jelly red beans, Mier becomes excited and quickly hugs and thanks Satia for the gift. The following day, Joe wakes up and notices how gloomy the weather is, but he shivers after seeing his packed bags and realizes that Mier might have stopped by, making him tremble more because he knows it's about last night. Meanwhile, Mier approaches Harv and offers him the jelly, commenting that Harv deserves it, unlike others who are frauds, while looking at Rainey, who now quickly announces that she will look for Satia. As Rainey approaches Satia, she quickly hides behind her back. Hence, Mier starts to share with Satia how he was scammed by someone who made him pay thrice the amount of jelly. He hopes that person goes to hell, which Satia also agrees to innocently. Upon arriving home, Mier's informant reports to him that he is positive that Royus is the opium dealer. Finally, some dirt on that boy! Knowing this information, Mier plans to gather more evidence to convict Royus, which his subordinates also agree to. Afterward, Mier visits the feudal lord's home, which is in charge of the border, because Mier plans to bring out Royus, hence he needs to win over the leader. Upon entering the home, Mier quickly notices the expensive art displayed, making him comment on how beautiful the lord's collection is. However, the lord only brushes it off, saying that those are gifts from people. After his meeting, Mier concluded that the feudal lord and Royus were working together because the artifacts in the lord's room were mainly from the Forgotten Moon Merchant group. Mier then arrives at their home and hands Satia a delivery. Satia quickly opens it and tells Mier it's a gift from him. Mier quickly fits it and asks for Satia to help him, which she agrees to. Well, that's an improvement! After Mier informs Satia that he'll be leaving to visit the Emperor, Satia is a little worried, but he assures her that everything is fine. The following day, when Satia is sending Mier off, she reminds him to be safe and then moves for a hug. But their moment is disrupted by Rainey, who reminds Mier to go since he might be delayed. Next, while Satia is busy working, a servant informs her that Rainey has gotten into a dispute. Thus, Satia runs towards the scene. Upon arriving, she then commands Rainey to stop hurdling the woman and apologize to her. But Rainey doesn't do so, hence, Satia apologizes on Rainey's behalf. Afterward, while walking, Harv starts to inform Satia that Rainey had done it to defend him since the woman had seen his slave mark. Knowing this, Satia turns to Rainey and apologizes to her for not asking about her side. This made Rainey emotional and glad. Later, while Rainey and Harv are enjoying a snack, Harv starts to admire Rainey, as nobody had ever defended him before. Thus, Harv thanks Rainey for it. Rainey replies that it's no big deal because she also met her dream guy. Love is blooming! Rainey reveals she met the man of her dreams, as striking as Satia, not just in looks but in aura. Harv sits speechless as he listens. On their way to Satia, Mier and his servant stopped at a flooded path. Again. The servant suggests swimming, but Mier disagrees and orders an alternate route through the mountains. Though without inns, he doesn't mind. At the Sunset Rose merchant camp, Harv is stunned by Verdo's beauty, mistaking him for a noblewoman, until Verdo speaks. He politely states he's looking for Satia and Rainey. Rainey greets Verdo warmly. From the side, Harv realizes Verdo is the one Rainey spoke of. She then informs Satia of his arrival. Later, Rainey catches Harv flushing in front of a mirror and invites him to eat. On the way, he admits he thought Verdo was a woman and asks if Rainey did too. She explains Verdo sometimes wears women's clothes to explore what suits him best. Harv then asks if Verdo really is Rainey's dream guy. Rainey says it's more like a crush on a handsome actor. She's drawn to long-haired people like Verdo and Satia. Harv smiles, admitting he likes Satia too. Rainey asks if he has feelings for her, but he denies it. They continue discussing their admiration. Watching them, Satia wonders if Harv likes Rainey, though she thinks Rainey likes Verdo. Rainey sees Satia nearby and warmly welcomes her. Satia says she's just going to grab a bite. On the way, she bumps into Royus, who invites her to eat. She agrees, though her thoughts clash. Maybe it's fine if they're not alone, or maybe it doesn't matter since he said they'd just be friends. At their favorite spot, as he toasts to their friendship with wine, tears stream down his face. Disheartened, he confesses that he could treat Satia better. Satia couldn't care less about what Royus just said. In the heat of the moment, Royus stands up and cups Satia's face in a seemingly attempted kiss, but Satia doesn't like it and immediately pushes him away. Satia returns to camp and thanks Rainey for working hard. As Satia walks past, Rainey feels sorry for her after witnessing Royus confess his love to her. The next morning, Royus asks his servant for more wine, insisting he's still sober. He gets a bit dramatic, saying that filling the void doesn't fix anything and that his wealth means nothing. Soon after, with the help of his servant, he realizes that he should eliminate Mier before he returns. Later, Satia and Rainey walk together and bump into Royus. He quickly apologizes for what happened. Satia tells him it's no big deal and there's nothing to apologize for, though deep down, she's annoyed and tells herself that if he has a conscience, he'll keep his distance. Meanwhile, Mier and his servant are still on their journey, relieved that the path is much smoother this time. All they need to do now is hand over the information they gathered and monitor the investigation as the Royal Knights will handle the opium dealers. He mentions it will take 3 more days to reunite with Satia. But suddenly, they're under attack! Ready to fight, both go into stealth mode, taking down 25 enemies. Worried more enemies might delay their return, they plan to take a different path. After the long journey, Mier finally arrives at camp and sees Satia. The sight of her sleeping on the sofa greets Mier. She wakes when he carries her and immediately gives him a tight hug, filled with longing and relief. She feels something under his clothes, but Mier brushes it off, telling her to go back to sleep. Satia insists he take off his clothes before bed, growing suspicious when he won't let her undress him, even though he loves it when she does that. Mier keeps making excuses, but Satia pushes him onto the bed, climbing on top to check what he's hiding. To her surprise, she sees a support wrapped around his injured shoulders. She finally learns he was ambushed and grazed by an arrow, but Mier assures her that his injury is nothing that serious. Worried, Satia hugs him again. While hugging her, Mier adores this side of Satia that he doesn't get to see often. He then says he wants to wash up, but when Satia offers to help, he shyly says they'll just go to sleep instead. The next morning, Mier wakes without Satia by his side. He gets up, opens the door, and sees Rainey. He quickly lets her in to report what happened while he was away. After she fills him in, Rainey changes the topic, asking if he plans to wash. Mier gives a playful smirk and replies that Satia will give him a bath. Mier, ready for a bath, welcomes Satia in. He wears a bathrobe after arguing that it's meant for after bathing. To Satia's surprise, he wears it open, exposing his upper abdomen. Mier thinks Satia is unromantic when she straightens his robe. After scrubbing his upper body, Satia prepares to leave, but Mier complains she didn't wash him down there. He expects her to wash him all over, but Satia smiles and says his right hand works fine for that. As she steps out, she slips and Mier catches her, but they both ended up drenched in the tub. Satia worries about his wet bandages, but Mier shrugs it off and suggests she join since she's already soaked. Flushed, Satia declines at first, but Mier convinces her. While bathing, Satia keeps her distance on the opposite side. When Mier points it out, she says she's admiring the moon, though she's too shy to face him. Mier replies saying that she shines brighter than the moon. Satia returns the compliment, but he belittles himself, feeling tainted as an assassin despite his appearance. Satia then moves closer and cups his face warmly. Mier breaks the moment, leaving the bath first, saying he stayed too long. Over tea, Mier opens up about staying in Chae until his work is done and wants Satia to stay with him. She agrees, saying she would have stayed anyway. Satia suddenly asks if Mier knows who's trying to assassinate him. Mier says no. He then says he wants her to meet Royus, head of the Forgotten Moon Merchant Group, as they've agreed to dine together. Satia agrees and sends a letter to Royus. Royus smiles at the sender's name, but his smile fades when he reads it's an invitation from His Grace. Disappointed, he realizes His Grace is alive, explaining why his assassins no longer report back. Royus sighs, frustrated that Mier won't die easily and that he has more to lose. What annoys him more is that Satia sent an invitation, but it's really her husband who wants to dine with him. Satia sees Mier's reflection and calls out. Mier jumps to the conclusion she wants a goodnight kiss, but she only wants help with her earrings. Afterward, Mier jokes he can sniff her anytime since he likes her scent, even offering a hug to make it easier for Satia, who politely declines. When Mier asks to smell her and leans in, he ends up licking her neck, prompting Satia to push him away. Pretending to be hurt, Mier asks for a kiss on his injury as an apology. Satia nonchalantly says the physician can handle it. Mier admits that it hurts when she doesn't speak to him like a lover. Satia replies that she can't just let him do anything just because he is. Mier says he feels unloved whenever she says that. Feeling a little bad, Satia assures him she'll be more mindful. She firmly refuses to kiss his injury, but hesitantly tells him she loves him very much and to stop doubting her feelings. Caught off guard, Mier repeats her words. Satia doesn't take them back. Embarrassed, he hides his red face. She comforts him, trying to see his face, while he wonders if her words mean she's ready to marry him. They grow close, but a knock interrupts. Mier resists checking, but Satia pushes him to go. He gives in, promising to return to finish where they left off. After learning guests want to meet him immediately, Mier slams the door in frustration, knowing he has no choice. Later, back in the bedroom, still annoyed their moment was ruined over something the staff could have handled, he hugs Satia and goes to sleep. At the meetup with Royus, Mier looks different. He says it's for Satia. Royus compliments his traditional Chae outfit, and Mier says Satia had it custom made there. Royus adds he also received a gift, making Mier curious. Satia interjects, saying she just repaid Royus for an outfit he gave her, and the designer chose it. Royus replies it still made him happy, then shows Mier he's wearing the outfit. And so, dinner happens. Royus boasts about the outfit Satia gifted him. Mier compliments him, but inside, he's utterly pissed off. Mier starts by asking Royus about the lady he once mentioned. Royus reveals that it didn't work out. Surprised, Satia clarifies what she just heard. Mier looks confused. Both men realize the other never told Satia. As they eat, Satia reflects. She knows Royus likes her and can't believe he thinks she'd return his feelings knowing she's married. Then realization hits. She connects the dots. The assassination attempt in Alanair happened right after Royus's visit. Mier says Eli, pretending to be him, was attacked, but Royus was in Alanair then. Assassins strike in Chae just 4 days after arrival, too soon for news to travel from Alanair unless someone is already there. The timeline fits Royus. He claims he wants to stay friends but uses alcohol to confess, then tells Mier the same. He knows Satia loves another, so he must think she'd accept him if Mier died. Satia's suspicion grows, nearly convinced it's Royus all along. Left alone, Satia confronts Royus, reminding him that they agreed to be just friends and that she never led him on. She demands to know what he told Mier. Royus hints Mier has secrets. Unfazed, Satia ends their friendship, all while Mier listens from a distance. Later, Royus drinks alone in jealousy. He thinks Satia hates him, but believes he still has a chance since she doesn't know the truth about him yet. His plan? Make her doubt Mier so she'll come to him. Meanwhile, Satia trains late into the night. Watching from afar, Mier fears she's figured out Royus is behind the attacks and might seek revenge. Suddenly, Bianca, Mier's loyal hound, appears, and Mier demands a report. Bianca reveals they're tracking nobles that were bribed to overlook the opium trade. The fastest way to bring them down is to seize their account books. There are 3 possible locations, all heavily guarded. That's why they plan to strike when Royus visits the opium factory. Mier is flabbergasted. He didn't expect Royus would be arrested on the spot. Mier comments that the plan is weak and would need many people. Bianca says that's why Chae requested help, though without saying what they want in return. Mier then orders a meeting to turn the situation in their favor. Bianca adds that the soldiers under the commanding officer have been asking about Mier and Satia. Mier waits by Satia's bed, wondering why her alarm is set to 8 when she usually wakes at 7. He kisses her forehead to wake her, but she stays asleep. After a few more kisses, she finally wakes up, flustered, and pushes him, then apologizes. Mier teases her for a kiss if she's really sorry, calling her mentor, knowing it's her dream to guide juniors. Satia protests, so he drops the title but still insists on the kiss. Satia changes the topic, saying she needs to go to Siren, near Puhan. Mier offers to come. She doesn't want him to see her play dirty as she takes down Royus, but also wants him close, so she agrees, saying he can come as her husband. Mier agrees. As they walk, Mier asks again why she hates being called mentor. They banter until Satia runs off, leaving Mier thinking she might actually like it. As Mier enters, Harv compliments Rainey's traditional dress, the one Satia gave to her. He teases that Satia doesn't know Rainey is her devoted fan, and Rainey claims she just happens to like and respect her. Joe tries to speak, but Rainey cuts in, saying he was about to spill that she loves Satia, then quickly changes the subject, urging that they leave. Suspicious, Mier walks off while the two bicker. Rainey scolds Joe for almost spilling her secret. During a meal, Mier's knights are asked to be recruited for a mission. Mier then confronts them, saying he knows that they've been looking into him and Satia. After he explains, Mier claims he knows they don't have bad intentions. They continue the discussion, ending when Mier decides to remove the restrictive clause set by the Moon Merchant group. Later that day, Mier suddenly appears, startling Satia. He reminds her to take a break, which she agrees to, but says she needs to see Rainey first. When Rainey arrives, Satia compliments her. Mier, surprised that Satia can compliment others but not him, fishes for compliments, leaving Satia baffled by his childishness. Since Satia likes green, Mier offers to show her his green undergarments. Flustered, she pulls his pants back up, but a servant accidentally witnesses the scene, leaving Satia worried she's ruined her reputation. Mier calms the servant by explaining the situation. After the servant leaves, Satia asks if he's a pervert. He admits it, but says he's only a pervert for her. Hearing this, she immediately sends him away. Left alone, Satia is dumbfounded, realizing she doesn't mind Mier's jealousy, but wonders why he needs to ask if he's handsome. Meanwhile, on the way out, Rainey provokes Mier by claiming that Satia considers her more important, making him annoyed. She then hints she knows a secret about Satia, one that only she is aware of. Rainey reveals where Satia's beauty mark is, something even Mier doesn't know. Upon hearing this, his mood immediately shifts from annoyed to delighted, prompting him to dismiss Joe as he wishes to learn more from Rainey. A while later, Mier spies on Satia, who's going to the shop where he bought the bracelets and earrings. After a short while of tailing her, he realizes that she's about to go back to their quarters. Upon her return, Satia looks for Mier, who, from her perspective, just pops out of the window. Confused, she tells him to stop snooping around, especially on this day. He then asks her why she's back at such an hour, to which she responds that she just wants to spend time with him. As they head out for a date, all Satia talks about is Rainey, which kills the mood for Mier. He then expresses his disheartenment, to which she immediately apologizes. Their date continues as they peruse around, looking for a green traditional dress. Mier finally finds a dress that is to Satia's liking. Unfortunately, it's not his size. Verdo then comes out of nowhere, whom Mier confuses for Satia, offering to adjust the size. The two then leave the establishment, but as they go out, Satia worries, wondering if Mier is bored. She then asks him to hide around the corner because she has something to say, but Mier offers to start instead, stating that hanging out with her has been the best feeling ever. After hearing him say this, she reminds him of what he was worried about the other day, admitting that for her, he's the prettiest person she's ever met. Noticing that she's flushing red, Mier goes for a kiss. Still not satisfied, the two decide to do it again. After sharing a passionate kiss, Mier wonders why Satia is so stiff, thinking that he might have done something wrong. The day after, the tension between the two is still present. Shortly after, Satia breaks the ice by handing Mier a box with a trinket inside. Obviously, this is her gift to him, but she gives it under the pretense that she has no use for it. He then hugs her tightly, expressing his gratitude. Later that day, Satia visits the pottery with the intention of getting a sweet deal for the dinnerware. But before that, she has to discuss business with her manager, so she asks Mier to rest while he waits. He then decides to browse vases, which he seems to recognize as similar to a gift from Royus. Meanwhile, Satia is currently discussing a future collaboration. Her goal is to discourage their competitors from restricting the size of their products, and it seems to be going well. Upon returning, Mier greets Satia, offering to take care of her, visibly making Satia flush. He then attempts to flirt with her, but is immediately shut down. After taking a bath, he asks her if she wants to see how his wounds have healed, which Satia unexpectedly agrees to. Now that she's actually willing, Mier becomes reluctant, but she's persistent. Meanwhile, the merchants talk about the Sunset Rose merchant group, who came up with an offer. Apparently, all of them also received their own offers, and they wonder if they're able to do it. The following morning, Mier asks Satia for help in applying ointment to his wounds. He's been looking forward to this for a while now. While she's applying the ointment, she's determined to eliminate Royus. He then asks her if she wants to take a look at his other wounds, to which she unexpectedly agrees again. He tries to digress by mentioning her meeting with her manager, but she still insists on seeing the wounds. Mier then explains the origin of all his accumulated wounds, but this is cut short when he starts to become aroused by Satia's touch. It is then revealed, or at least he suspects, that Satia could be more perverted than him because her touches seem intentional. Not able to contain it anymore, Satia embarrassingly cries that Mier is so cute, making him quite pleased to hear. He then claims that it's all because of her in the first place. A while later, Satia once again meets with one of the craftsmen, who informs her that he invited the other craftsman to whom she gave the same proposal. Shortly after, the craftsmen are kind of skeptical of the offer because it's too good to be true. They then arrive at a consensus that they will accept the deal as long as Satia supplies them with porcelain clay from Lamium. Upon hearing the preposterous condition, not knowing whether it was a test or a dismissal, Satia asks for some time to think it over. Sometime later, she is reviewing and researching for an appropriate solution, but it isn't that easy. Mier then lies next to her, wondering why she never comes to him for help, to which she responds that it's her responsibility as the head of the merchant group. After a bit of flirting, Mier shifts to a more serious note, noting that she can always lean on him because he's her #1 supporter. Feeling comforted by his words, she then shares with him what happened in the meeting earlier. Mier then offers to find a solution together. He's now even more determined because he can finally help her. Soon after, Mier requests help from his acquaintance in acquiring the porcelain clay from Lamium. Though he visibly wants to decline, he can't help it because he owes Mier 2 favors. Meanwhile, Satia is in quite a predicament since Royus is paying her a visit. He expresses his disappointment because she's targeting their business, to which she responds that she no longer considers him a friend or an associate. Shortly after, Mier stumbles upon Royus and asks why he's here. He explains that he just conducted business with Satia. He then invites Mier for a drink, which Mier declines, saying that he wants to live healthily for Satia. Royus then invites him to tea instead, and Mier agrees. Upon arrival, Royus excuses himself to invite 3 ladies from the brothel, claiming that Mier wishes to have them around. Royus is still not done with his schemes as he orders the server to put sedatives in the tea they just ordered. Soon after, the tea is drugged, and as Mier is about to drink it, Royus' plan is almost complete. He knows that no matter how skilled a swordsman Mier is, he'll be helpless if he's drugged. After taking a small sip, Mier tells him that it's a bit hot for his liking. Royus then offers to have it cool down, somewhat disappointed. He plans to call Satia immediately once Mier is with the ladies from the brothel. But as they continue to drink, Royus begins to suspect that the server might have forgotten to add the sedatives. Noticing that Royus keeps looking at his cup, Mier offers to share his tea. Confident that they've forgotten to add the drugs, Royus drinks it and immediately drops down. So Mier knew all along about Royus' schemes. A little while later, Royus wakes up at the brothel, greeted by the women he had invited. He immediately asks an employee what happened and realizes that Mier got him instead. Ashamed, he promises to deal with Mier after resolving the issue with the pottery makers. The next morning, Mier visits Rainey on her birthday. He wants to harvest sweet potatoes alongside her. She then becomes disappointed, thinking he's only there for his own self-interest and not to celebrate her birthday. After harvesting the sweet potatoes, Harv cooks with them, greatly surprising Mier and Rainey with his skills. Upon tasting his food, Mier can't help but acknowledge his talent. Although he's not comfortable with men around Satia, he can make an exception for Harv. Rainey is elated that Mier finally acknowledges Harv because he's a great cook. Mier then looks forward to seeing Harv do even better tomorrow for the voting. After Mier leaves, Harv asks if he can visit Rainey later since it's her birthday. Rainey jokingly asks if Harv got her a present, to which he unexpectedly affirms. He doesn't seem to know how to keep a secret. He then promptly leaves, leaving Rainey blushing and now looking forward to the present. Later that day, Harv arrives with the present, and Rainey invites him in because she wants him to be there when she opens it. The present is revealed to be a home-cooked dish by Harv, making Rainey recall that no one has ever given her home-cooked gifts except for her colleagues. Later that day, Satia arrives with another present. She then asks Rainey out since they haven't hung out in a while, which Rainey declines because she already ate with Harv. Satia then leaves, happy for Rainey. Shortly after Satia leaves, Mier pops out of nowhere asking Rainey what food Harv made for her. Upset, she ignores him, but he promptly hands over his gift to her, her favorite candies, as per Satia. Harv then arrives, making Mier promptly ask what he made for Rainey. Annoyed, Rainey asks him to leave because it's her present from Harv, not his. Noticing the tension between the two, Harv offers his share instead and promises to get Mier more tomorrow. Later that day, Satia is still having trouble giving the craftsmen what they asked for. Instead, she's going to give them the second best clay in Chae, along with some high-quality paint. She's then startled by Mier, who is just silently sitting there with his dashing eyes. She asks him why he's here, and instead of answering with words, he kisses her on the forehead, wanting to help her feel relaxed. He then hands over a permission granting her access to the ancient clay of Lamium. Surprised, she asks how he acquired this permission, to which he states that the vice captain owed him a favor, and it so happens he's connected to the authorized person. Satia then gives him a pat of appreciation and tells him she has to meet with her manager. Mier then cutely asks what he should do while he waits for her. Satia tells Mier to wait, and upon her return, she expects him to have already left. But as she enters the room, she's once again startled because he's just creepily waiting there. He then greets her with a hug, saying that he's been wanting to do this all day. He then reminds her of the wish he owes her, asking if she's finally figured out what kind of wish she wants. She says yes, but is still finding the right time to reveal it. Her wish is to actually stay by his side, even if they get divorced, because she wants to be lovers with him. Satia is still unsure if it's possible for them to marry again once their contract ends, just because they're dating. Noticing that she's lost in thought, Mier tells her to relax as he carries her to the bed. After kissing her on the forehead, he then tells her that they're just going to go out instead because that's what she wants. Later that day, Mier wonders if it's finally time for him to stop the facade once they return to Alier. That's only if what Bianca told him is accurate. As the thought recedes, he recalls what Rainey told him about Satia's beauty mark. He wonders if he can finally check it now as he's currently fixing her. Following Rainey's instructions in his mind, he finally finds the beauty mark. This, of course, leaves him overjoyed. Meanwhile, Satia wonders what's gone into him. Though he wants to inspect more beauty marks on her body, he worries that she might think he's a creep, so Mier decides to stop there for now. Later that night, on the bed, Satia opens the curtain that divides her bed from Mier's. He then asks why, saying that she'd never part it for no reason. She decides to give him a goodnight kiss as thanks for everything he has done for her. As Satia gives Mier a kiss, he tries his best to contain himself from taking it to the next level. After the kiss, he's left restless, unable to stop thinking about it. The same applies to Satia, who regrets not kissing him earlier that morning. The next morning, Satia finally gives the craftsmen what they want, the permission to mine the ancient clay. They are obviously in disbelief, but Satia reminds them that this permit must remain confidential no matter what. The craftsmen reach a consensus, agreeing to work exclusively with the Sunset Rose Merchant Group. They then inform Satia that Royus actually visited them last night, offering to tweak the contract, but now their contract ends here. Meanwhile, Royus is disheartened that Satia would stoop so low just to terminate her relationship. However, this only strengthens his determination to fight back, and surprisingly fall for Satia because of what she's done. After the meeting, Mier congratulates Satia. In return, she expresses her utmost thanks, saying that without him, it wouldn't have happened. He then kneels on one knee, trembling uncontrollably. Mier reveals that he's aroused by what she just said, greatly dumbfounding Satia. She then tells him to snap out of it, which is met with his disappointment. Moving on, she asks if there's anything he wants as a reward, to which he responds that he wants a kiss, and if he can't have that, he prefers to be talked down to. Mier is slowly developing into a masochist. Satia is confused, wondering why Mier would want to be treated badly. Although she feels bad about this, she can't refuse because he did help her out. She then proceeds to talk down to him, making him really excited. She then wonders how she fell for this masochistic idiot. The next day, Satia visits different workshops along with her company, but she notices them growing tired. She then promotes them. Though they're pleased to hear this, they slowly realize that there's going to be more work for them. Later that day, Bianca arrives, wishing to discuss something with Mier. Bianca reveals that Royus has already made his move. Though Mier anticipated this, he didn't expect it to happen so soon. Meanwhile, Satia feels weird not having Mier around. Despite his reassurance that he'll be back by the time she wakes up, she can't help but get a bad feeling about this. In the middle of the night, someone arrives and lies next to Satia. She wonders why Mier would caress her roughly, as he's never done that before. But then she slowly realizes that this couldn't be Mier. She quickly stands up and grabs her dagger. It's revealed that the person next to her was Royus, who commands his lackey to capture her. Though Satia tries to fight back, she is powerless against Royus's lackey. After she's restrained, she exclaims that he must have gone insane for capturing a noble from another country, but it seems that Royus doesn't care at all. He then subtly threatens her, saying that if she doesn't stay quiet, he might have to resort to knocking her out, which he doesn't want to happen. Satia then carefully plans her escape, but no matter how hard she thinks, it seems as though escape is not possible. Dispirited, she wonders if she'll be able to see Mier again. But she doesn't want to give up. In fact, she has even more reason not to give up because she still wants to see Mier again. Shortly after, one of the lackeys is stabbed, and just as Royus turns his head, he is incapacitated by Mier. After restraining Royus and his lackeys, Bianca and Mier quickly check on Satia, informing her that Joe is unconscious but injured. However, Satia visibly has burns on her wrist. Mier then embraces her tightly, regretting that he didn't figure out Royus's plan sooner. He then orders Bianca to tell Joe to clean up the mess because he deserves it for not protecting Satia well. He then tells her that he'll go to the royal police since they've been looking for Royus for a while now. Satia then asks what the police could possibly want from Royus, to which Mier responds that he'll answer her once he gets back. He seems to dislike the idea of Satia calling Royus by his given name. He then kisses her on the lips before leaving, stating that the kiss is for breaking her promise. After he leaves, she is left momentarily stunned, wondering what promise she could have broken. She then slowly comes to the realization that it must have been about her calling Royus by his name. Later, as Mier escorts Royus, they arrive at the forest where they are greeted by 3 assassins. Mier then explains that they're going to play a game of tag, and if he ever sees Royus, he'll kill him. Royus tells him that he's the one going to die, and immediately the assassins jump on Mier. But he quickly incapacitates all of them, stating that he's the one doing the catching. Realizing they're no match for Mier, Royus reminds him that he was supposed to take him to the police, to which Mier immediately denies. Mier then starts to count to 30 as he waits for Royus to hide. Just as Royus thinks he is safe, Mier suddenly appears behind him, grabbing him by the hair and throwing him to the ground. Royus then realizes that Mier is more evil than he is, and that he treats killing people as if it's a game. He mockingly tells Mier that if Satia ever finds out who he truly is, she would leave him immediately. Mier declares that Satia will never find out, but Royus just laughs it off. Royus knows that Satia already suspects Mier because he just killed a man without hesitation earlier. Royus states that Mier can't keep his identity from Satia forever, and once she does, she'll immediately leave him because Satia is righteous. After expressing contempt toward each other, Mier stomps on Royus, saying that Satia will never leave him because she loves him. Royus retorts, saying that it can't be real love because she fell for the fake persona he showed her, not the actual him. But Mier is unfazed. He knows Satia loves him. She's expressed this multiple times. The only thing that concerns him is that she never explicitly told him that she loves him. He also didn't get a chance to tell her because he's afraid it won't be reciprocated. The thing is, Mier is aware that he knows Satia can't handle his true desires and would immediately run if he ever insists upon them. Mier then begins to doubt whether Satia actually loves him. Mier then tells Royus that he's not that different because he also hid his personality. But Royus just continues to provoke Mier. He then leaves with Royus promising that he'll rot in prison, wishing he was dead. The following day, Satia wakes up beside Mier, acknowledging that he kept his promise of returning once she woke up. He dreamt of Satia confessing her feelings to him, but of course, he can't admit that. He then explains that Bianca handed Royus to the police. He also tells her what Royus did to cause the police to search for him. Meanwhile, Royus is being arrested and claims that he doesn't know anything. He's then informed that an investigation will be done to see if he's telling the truth or not. A few days later, Mier visits Satia, who's busy with her job. She then asks him what he's doing, and he responds by saying he's here to help someone. Apparently, Mier is tasked with finding out how to open Royus's safe containing the list of nobles who took bribes. The reason for this is a subordinate who proudly claimed that Mier is able to open any door. Satia then wonders if he really is able to open the safe, to which he hesitantly reminds her that he's an assassin. After a day, Mier was able to open the safe, and after that, the investigation went smoothly, resulting in the imprisonment of the listed nobles. The vice captain then asks him how he could ever repay Mier. Mier knows that he can make use of this connection to help Satia. Upon being asked again if he needs anything else, he smirks as he snaps his neck. In the evening, Satia asks if she could talk to Royus in private, which doesn't sit well with Mier, but it can't be helped. Upon seeing her visit, Royus is overjoyed, but this only makes her uncomfortable as he recently just attempted to kidnap her. Disappointed, she asks him if this is what he wanted for Chae, making his merchant group a disgrace, but he claims that he did all these things for the country. She finds this absurd, but he tells her that she'll eventually find out. He explains further, saying that opium has the potential to bring down another country because of its influence, and it was up to them to handle that kind of work. But Satia just thinks that he's delusional. She then grabs his clothes, shouting why he dared to attack Mier, to which he responds that he attacked him because he came back alive. He then tells her that she has no idea who Mier truly is, revealing that Mier used to hunt people. Satia asks if Royus thinks he's the one for her, and after he confirms, she draws her bow, pointing it at him. Satia declares that she will never be with Royus and that she'll never leave Mier. She then shoots her arrow, scraping Royus' shoulders. Upon exiting the prison, Mier immediately embraces her, reminding her of what Royus told her. Though she thinks that Mier is only here temporarily, what's important is that he's here in front of her. Satia had hoped that he could exact an appropriate revenge for Royus, but it can't be helped, and she believes that prison life will do that for her, to the point that he will ask for death. A while later, Royus' brother pays him a visit and calls him a fool. Instead of consoling him, Marquis Xiao chastises him, making Royus feel like he's a disgrace. He then gives him poison to end his life before he even reaches the trial. Royus doesn't even beg for his life, though he regrets not asking Satia to kill him instead, so that she would remember him. A few days later, Mier receives a letter from the vice captain. It contains news of Royus' death en route to the palace. They suspect that the culprit is Marquis Xiao, and that poison was used. This was already expected, given that the Xiaos are more than willing to go to such lengths. They're ruthless. Satia then tells Mier that they should just go instead, since there's going to be no trial anymore. He then tells her that he will make sure the trial happens. Satia is glad that the trial will still take place, meaning Royus will be deemed a criminal even after his death. Apparently, Mier already anticipated Royus' death when he heard that Marquis Xiao was paying him a visit. He even informed the vice captain beforehand that no matter what happens to Royus, the trial would still push through. Though he wanted Royus to suffer more in prison, dying like that is still pathetic and fitting, given that he's been abandoned by his family. Actually, no, it wasn't enough. Had he known Royus would die like that, he would have made sure to make him suffer more. It was the first time the trial was conducted with a dead person. Royus' associates were captured and his family abandoned him, not even giving him a proper funeral. Even the craftsmen who used to work for him are happy that they cut ties before he was found out. At present, Satia and Mier have returned to Lunaria and start doing business on the estate the Emperor bestowed upon them. Satia is carefully admiring Mier, who can't help but notice her. He then remembers what Royus told him about Satia not accepting him, but that couldn't be further from the truth, as she had already accepted him even before. Still, he can't help but wonder what actually made her fall for him. He then rests on her lap, asking for a dose of Satia. The two reach out for a kiss, but are interrupted by Alicia and Canos. The two then continue their kiss underneath the table. Afterward, they continue discussing their business. All of Satia's subordinates seem to have been promoted. After Alicia and Canos leave, Mier asks for another kiss, which annoys Satia. Meanwhile, Canos is suspicious of Alicia and Rainey, whom he thinks are hiding a secret from him. And indeed, it does seem like they are. Harv is busy in the field when suddenly water is accidentally poured on him. He immediately drops down, afraid that the other gardeners might see his slave brand. Luckily, Satia arrives and covers him up with her coat. Afterward, Harv expresses his utmost gratitude to Satia, who tells him to see a physician to check if he's hurt. After visiting the physician, he apologizes to her for soiling her coat, to which she responds that she didn't call him to scold him. She then gives him paperwork to go over. She knows how badly Harv wishes to forget his past, which is why, if someone ever attempts to harm him, she'll make sure they pay. She then offers to erase Harv's slave brand by covering it up with a tattoo, making him very excited. She knows how it feels to want to forget something, but compared to what Harv has gone through, hers is insignificance. Meanwhile, Mier hands Satia the potion she requested. This potion is to aid in covering up Harv's slave brand. It's an anesthetic. Satia then decides to remove the brand by the evening. At night, Mier wonders why Satia is dressed up, to which she responds that she'll remove the branding herself. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!